Chapter 26. Really? Therefore, Tianyi chose to quit while he was ahead and looked at Tsunade in astonishment and asked back. Yet. Really? Tsunade nodded with a grin. So, kid, what's your answer? Are you willing? I do. Uchiha Teniki, meet Tsunade-sensei. Tianyi immediately bowed to Tsunade happily and responded. This step is finally accomplished. Then many subsequent plans can be officially launched and get on track. Very good. From today on, you are my disciple. Starting tomorrow, you will come to see me at the ninja hospital every morning and I will teach you medical ninjutsu. Any questions? Tsunade nodded in satisfaction and made the arrangements. Well. Tianyi heard this and said hesitantly, but I still have to go to school. Oh. After hearing this, Tsunade folded her hands, looked at Tianyi with a playful expression and said teasingly, didn't you say that you have learned almost everything that the school can teach? Aren't you planning to use the shadow clone technique to go to school in your place, and even instigated a few classmates to do so? You still care about this? Ahihi. Tianyi heard this and immediately said awkwardly, this is different. Using shadow clone to take my place in class is a last resort. I don't want to waste time for nothing, now is my golden period to become stronger, how can I waste time? The point is that I had no legitimate reason to explain to the teacher what I did, but learning medical ninjutsu with you is a serious matter. I can just explain the situation to the teacher directly, and then use shadow clone to go to school in my place. This way, we don't have to worry about shadow clone being exposed. Right. So, teacher, you can either give me a certificate and let me give it to my head teacher, either you come to school tomorrow and explain the situation to my teacher in person, you see. As he said that, Tenika looked at Tsunade eagerly. You are very thoughtful, kid. Tsunade listened and shook her head in amusement. She had to admit that this kid was really smart and had taken all the human relationships into consideration. Okay. She couldn't help but stretched out her hand and pinched Tianyi's cute cheek again and said, I'll go to the school tomorrow and explain the situation to your teacher in person. Thank you, teacher. When Tianyi heard this, he was overjoyed and thanked him. Now, he doesn't have to worry about the teacher finding out about shadow clone, hehe. You're welcome, it's my honor. Tsunade waved her hand nonchalantly, then beckoned, all right. Let's go. Take me to your house. I still need to talk to your parents about becoming your apprentice. This matter must be reported to Tianyi's parents. If Tianyi's parents don't agree, then this matter will be a bit troublesome. However, Tsunade estimated that this was impossible. This matter is beneficial to both Tianyi and Uchiha, so there is no reason for them to disagree. As for, should we be careful about Tianyi being brainwashed because of this? Sorry, Tsunade won't do that, nor will she allow the third generation to do that. If the third generation wanted to control and brainwash Teniki in this way, Tsunade could only say that he was overthinking it. She wouldn't allow it. As the old man has gained more and more power over the years, his desire for control has also grown. He cannot stand the emergence of people or things beyond his control, which is not a good thing. Although Tsunade cannot stop it, she will never help it. At least, she is Tsunade's disciple, and she will not allow the third generation to interfere and manipulate her like a pawn. So, from the very beginning, the third generation's plan failed. Okay. Teacher, please follow me. Tianyi naturally had no objection. However, before leaving, he looked around and at the deep pit on the ground, and couldn't help asking Tsunade, teacher, there was such a big commotion before, why didn't any ninja come to check? Isn't this a bit strange? Also, are we just going to leave this Ken here and ignore him? Nonsense. After hearing this, Tsunade glared at Tianyi, then stopped immediately, made hand seals, leaned over and slapped the ground. Earth-style land leveling technique. The next moment, the entire ground began to wriggle. In an instant, the deep pit was filled. Except for the soil which looked somewhat fresh, the grass and trees in the area were empty and broken, and everything seemed to have returned to the state before it was destroyed. Done. Let's go. After Tsunade finished doing all this, she stood up and clapped her hands, calling for Shang Tianyi, and continued to reply as she walked, the reason why no one came is because I sent Shadow Clone to inform the Anbu and the guards nearby in advance, asking them not to come over for the time being if they heard any movement here. Oh. Tianyi heard it and immediately understood, I knew it. No wonder. Oh. Tsunade smiled and stretched out her hand to pinch Tianyi's cheek, pulling it and teasing, "You think too much, you even noticed such details. But this is also good. Ninja, it is better to be careful. This way you are less likely to make mistakes and your ability to save your life will be better. Also, if you want to be an excellent medical ninja, you also need to be careful enough. Keep it up." Tianyi wordlessly slapped Tsunade's mischievous hand away and moved more than a meter to the side. While rubbing her red cheeks with her hands, she glanced at Tsunade with a resentful look and complained, "Tsunade teacher, can you stop pinching my face all the time? It hurts." "Okay." He knew he looked a little cute, but that was no reason for you to mess around. "Yo, yo, yo. Look at your little eyes." Tsunade listened, and immediately Ichiraku, and made a joke, but when he saw Tenika's look became even more resentful, he stopped, then he asked jokingly, "By the way, from now on, I will go with me to learn medical ninjutsu every day, and Shadow Clone will have to go to school. Are you sure you can handle it? Also, you seem to have promised your classmates that you would use Shadow Clone to skip classes and practice on your own, right? How will you deal with it then?" "Teacher, I'm very curious." Tisk tisk tisk. Tianyi. "Teacher, is it really okay for you to gloat over other people's misfortunes like this?" Tianyi was speechless. This woman is really a show-off. What's wrong with that? Tsunade spread her hands cheerfully and said, "Isn't what I said the truth?" "Yes." Tianyi looked at Tsunade deeply and said speechlessly, "However, it's just to split off one more shadow clone. With my chakra and mental strength, I can still hold on, so, this is not a problem at all. I'm sorry to disappoint you, teacher." Granted, his current chakra amount was only at the level of an ordinary Chunin, but his mental strength was strong enough to withstand the information shock and fatigue of multiple shadow clones. The control over chakra is also extremely high. Even if shadow clone chakra is a little less, it can be maintained for a longer period of time. Not to mention, he has successfully switched to the chakra movement method for more than a month, and his chakra volume is increasing every day. Although it was the same amount as an ordinary Chunin, his chakra amount had increased by at least 20% compared to a month ago. As time goes by, his chakra amount will only increase. It will not take many years before he no longer has to worry about chakra matters. Hey! After hearing this, Tsunade looked at Tianyi in surprise, "So confident? It seems that I underestimated you." "Yes, you can sense my presence from hundreds of meters away. Your mental strength is really strong. Did you activate the Sharingan?" If the Sharingan is activated, then it would be easier to explain why his mental power is stronger. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 27. No. Tianyi shook his head, "I'm only 5 years old, how can I open the Sharingan so early? Besides, in my opinion, it is not a good idea to activate the Sharingan too early when your physique is not strong enough. It is easy to get blood disease and die young. Aren't the original future Uchiha Itachi and even Kagaya Kimimaro typical examples? It is a truth that premature wisdom will lead to harm." After hearing this, Tsunade looked at Tianyi in surprise, "I didn't expect you to have such insight. Although it's not completely accurate, you're right for the most part. The mind and the body are in themselves a unity of opposites, without either one, life cannot exist. Similarly, if the balance between the two is disrupted, various problems will arise in life. Since you can realize this, I now believe that you have really been studying medicine seriously in the past few months and you are really passionate about it. I'm afraid I've really found a treasure this time." "It's okay." Tianyi smiled and nodded, "Actually, I am more interested in becoming stronger, but if you want to become stronger in the most appropriate way and at the fastest speed, relying solely on talent and existing training methods is far from enough in my opinion. If you follow the path of your predecessors and only follow the advice of others, you will not go far and will not be able to surpass your predecessors. But studying medicine can solve this problem to a certain extent. It allows me to understand the human body more clearly and better explore its potential, adjust and create various training methods and even ninjutsu that are more suitable for me. This is the original intention of my training in medical skills and medical ninjutsu. Unfortunately, the medical skills in my family are quite limited. At present, I have thoroughly understood all the medical skills in my family after seeing patients. For some days, I can only rely on my own thinking to improve." "Teacher, I heard that Konoha Hospital has a lot of medical books. Is that true?" Can I read them later? Simply studying medicine will not make you stronger, nor will it save the Uchiha or even the ninja world. Absolute strength is the real key. Therefore, it is impossible for Tianyi to simply study medicine. This was just a stepping stone for him, part of his plan. Hey! Tsunade was slightly surprised when she heard Tianyi's words. She didn't expect Tianyi to think this way. She was silent for a moment, thinking of her companions who had been killed or injured during past missions. She had to admit that Tianyi's idea might be correct. Medical skills are important or not, strength is the most important. Sure. Thinking of this, Tsunade calmed down and nodded, saying, since you have become my disciple and are so eager to learn, the medical books in the hospital and even in my home can naturally be opened to you. I just hope that you won't be perfunctory when the time comes, and learn from me seriously. Of course. Tianyi nodded affirmatively, even if it is not for understanding the human body, assisting in cultivation, and mastering powerful medical abilities, it will also be able to provide timely treatment for myself, my friends, and companions when they are injured in the future. I don't have any intention of looking down on medical skills. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent so much time and effort to learn medicine and read so many medical books. He is not extreme. That's good. Tsunade listened and nodded in satisfaction. Soon, the two entered the Uchiha tribe's territory. Many people along the way saw Tianyi and greeted him enthusiastically, and Tianyi responded with a smile. At the same time, the Uchiha who met also saw Tsunade with Teniki and naturally recognized her. They were all surprised and curious that Tianyi actually brought Tsunade into the tribe's territory. However, no one asked any more questions. Naturally, the clan leader or higher UPS will take care of matters like this. Before or in the early stages of village construction, we may need to be vigilant. But now that the Senjo clan is almost gone, the feud between the two clans has long been meaningless, and there is nothing to worry about. Wow! I didn't realize you're quite popular among Uchiha. Tsunade took it all in, smiling and whispering teasingly. It's okay. Tianyi shook his head noncommittally, after all, I am the son of the clan leader and a genius. I think I have a pretty easygoing personality and am not difficult to get along with. Isn't it normal that I am popular? Tisk tisk. Where's the snotty little brat? Tsunade was stunned at first when she heard this, but when she saw Tianyi's serious look, she couldn't help but want to pinch Tianyi's face. But this time she missed and was dodged by Tianyi. All right. We're home. Let me sense it. My parents are here. Please come in, teacher. At this time, Tianyi and Tsunade had already arrived at the door of Tian's house. Tianyi used his spiritual perception to sense that his parents were at home, so he welcomed Tsunade in. After that, of course, there was an introduction. At the same time, Tsunade also stated the purpose of his visit. Patriarch Nobuhiko, I came here this time to accept Uchiha Tianyi as my disciple. He has already agreed. What do you think? We naturally have no objection to this. Uchiha Nobuhiko suppressed his ecstasy and astonishment, and smiled calmly on the surface, saying, Tianyi is a smart child. He has his own opinions since he was a child, and he has never let us down. So, let's just follow his ideas. From now on, please take good care of my Tianyi, Princess Tsunade. Yes. Zinmei placed a cup of tea in front of Tsunade, sat down next to Uchiha Nobuhiko, and also looked at Tsunade with a smile and said, Teniki is a kid with some talent in medical ninjutsu. You've also learned some medical ninjutsu from me recently. Unfortunately, I am not talented enough in this area. I am just an ordinary medical ninja at best. I can no longer teach him. Now that Tsunade-ji is willing to accept you as a disciple, that's great. We still have you to thank. In fact, Uchiha Nobuhiko and Kakamaya were both shocked and surprised at this time. When they first heard that Tianyi was planning to become Tsunade's apprentice, they thought it was impossible. Even though Tianyi had a plan for this and was very confident, they only assisted and supported him with the idea of not discouraging the child. Unexpectedly, Tianyi actually did it so quickly. If Tsunade hadn't been there at this moment, they really wanted to ask Tianyi how he did it. Since Tsunade showed up here in person to accept a disciple, it meant that this matter must have been approved by the third generation. This is the most valuable thing. No way. You're too polite. Tsunade smiled and waved her hand after hearing this. She reached out and touched Tianyi's head while he looked helpless. She messed up his hair and said, This kid has amazing talent in medical ninjutsu and even ninjutsu. If the third generation hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known it. It is my honor to accept him as my disciple. After that, the atmosphere became more harmonious. Tsunade didn't stay here for too long. After chatting with Tianyi's family for more than 10 minutes, he said goodbye and left. When Tianyi sent Tsunade away from the Uchiha tribe and returned home, he found that his father was still sitting in the living room, looking at Tianyi, who came in with an attitude of a 3-judge trial. Mom and Dad, what are you doing? Tianyi said speechlessly. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 28. What do you think? Uchiha Nobuhiko pointed to the opposite side, motioning Tianyi to sit down, and then he asked curiously, tell me. How did you do it? I didn't have high hopes for your plan to become Tsunade's apprentice, but I didn't expect it to actually work out. It's incredible. For safety reasons, Uchiha Nobuhiko not only kept the isolation barrier covering the entire yard open, he also waved his hand and set up another barrier in the living room. The main concern is that the subsequent conversation will be discovered by outsiders. I didn't do anything. Tianyi smiled and shook his head. I just showed great approval and admiration for the third generation's presentation of the Will of Fire during the opening ceremony, acting like a fanatical fan of the third generation. In addition to the genius character that you, Father, have helped me lay the groundwork for, as well as my identity, it made third generation pay close attention to me. In the past month or so, he has actually been paying attention to my words and actions every day. We even sent people from Anbu to secretly track and record, to confirm whether I am truly his admirer and whether I truly highly approve of the Will of Fire. Now, since Tsunade has come to accept me as a disciple herself, it's obvious that my plan was successful. My disguise has successfully fooled the third generation. Third generation thinks I'm a promising talent. He probably sees hope in influencing and controlling Uchiha through me in the future, so, my success is not unexpected. Well, without the miraculous power brought by 20 wishes, things would never have gone so smoothly. In fact, the possibility of failure is extremely high. But these must not be told to anyone, including his parents. Hiss. So, all of this was part of your plan from the beginning to the end? You've played the third generation around. Uchiha Nobuhiko and Kakamai couldn't help but gasp when they heard this and asked. Why did they suddenly feel that their son's scheming was a little scary? Almost. Tianyi nodded affirmatively. As you know, my mental power is quite strong. Currently, my sensing range has reached 500 meters. I can sense many things. By the way, speaking of mental power, I recently created a Sharingan eye-opening method and a 3-tomo Sharingan meditation method. The former can develop blood, allowing the Uchiha tribe to open their eyes peacefully through practice without any stimulation, and there will be no problem of mental personality becoming extreme. The latter can further develop and tap into our Uchiha bloodline potential, strengthen our spiritual power and pupil power, and raise our Sharingan from 1 Megatama to 3 Megatama perfection, with the potential to open the Mangekyō Sharingan. I have verified it for a while and confirmed that there is no problem, so, father and mother, you can practice now. As he spoke, Tianyi raised his hand and pointed at the two of them through the air, directly using his mental power to send the relevant information of the two methods of cultivation into their minds. The two felt a large amount of information emerging in their minds and had to close their eyes to digest it. A few minutes later, hiss. The two opened their eyes almost at the same time, gasped again, looked at Tianyi in shock and said, is this true? You can even create such a terrifying technique? Is there anything you can't do? Tianyi listened, smiled and shrugged, saying, this is all thanks to you, father, for opening the clan library for me, and thanks to you, mother, for teaching me medical ninjutsu and medical skills. These are of great help to me in creating these exercises. This is not a lie. Without the knowledge and information about Sharingan and the human body in the Uchiha family library, even if Tianyi had a cheat, the number of wishes he had before would definitely not be enough to create these two skills. The only thing is, let's achieve each other. Forget it, kid. I know very well how valuable the things in the clan treasury are, it's all because you are too naive. Uchiha Nobuhiko did not follow Tianyi's words, but just shook his head with emotion. I gave birth to a good son. By the way, when will big brother come back? Let's teach him the 3-tomo Sharingan training method as well. Tianyi didn't want to dwell on this issue, so he changed the subject directly. It will probably take a few more days. Uchiha Nobuhiko nodded and looked at Tianyi with relief. You are quite nice to your elder brother. It's not like the two of you are always at odds with each other, right? Tianyi shrugged noncommittally. After all, we are brothers. It's okay to joke around and trick each other on weekdays, but when it comes to serious matters, we can't be willful. Uchiha Faith and Kakamai both smiled knowingly upon hearing this. This is good. Wait for your eldest brother to come back and teach him in person. Uchiha Nobuhiko explained, then his expression became serious and he said, however, in the short term, I do not recommend that these two techniques be taught to clan members outside of our family, it's not the right time yet. Let's wait until I have integrated the family, eliminated the problems, and completed the internal reforms of the family. Now, your safety is the most important thing, however, this will temporarily delay the rise of some families. But Uchiha Nobuhiko would rather do this than put Tianyi in danger. He wanted to nip in the bud any danger. The Sharingan eye-opening method is even more so, its significance even exceeds that of the three-tomo Sharingan training method, it must not be known to others in the short term, especially those in the village. Otherwise, we don't know how much suppression and targeting the third generation will face. A world where everyone can easily open their eyes through practice, or even practice step by step to reach the Uchiha of the three-tomo Sharingan, is definitely not what the third generation wants to see. That means every Uchiha is a potential Genin. The lowest achievement in the future will be at least Genin. Even if Tianyi fails to create a practice method to open Mangekyō in the future, the base number of 3 Magatama Uchiha has increased so much that everyone can still practice to the perfection of 3 Magatama. Then the probability of them opening the Mangekyō Sharingan through stimulation will also be greatly increased. Once Mangekyō is activated, it will be cage-level combat power. Even when paired with the eye technique and Susanoo, it is not suitable for the weak even at the cage level. Horrible. Tianyi nodded in agreement. I actually thought the same thing, but there's no need to hide it from you guys. First of all, I believe in you, secondly, if I don't let you know this, it will be inconvenient for you to cooperate with me in the future to reform Uchiha, Konoha, and even the ninja world. He is too young to get involved in the family reforms. It's better to leave it to your father. Therefore, these things naturally need to be explained to my father. Anyway, as long as it doesn't involve wish talent, it's not that important to Tianyi. So this is what you think. Uchiha Nobuhiko smiled knowingly after hearing this. His son is willing to believe in him without reservation, so what else can he say? You are treating me, your father, as a tool for your reform. Haha. Uchiha Nobuhiko is a hilarious and candid man. Tianyi listened and looked at his father jokingly, then are you willing? Of course I'm willing to do that, haha. I wish there were more of this kind of thing. Uchiha Nobuhiko's signature laugh. This is his son. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 29. Oh, right. Haven't you been researching the sealing technique recently? Have you made any impressive achievements? Uchiha Nobuhiko suddenly thought of something and couldn't help asking. Tianyi looked at him with some doubt and said, of course there are some, but most of the sealing techniques mastered by the family are not of high level, so the harvest is limited, it is far from meeting my requirements. I think I should try to get some advanced sealing techniques from teacher Tsunade. After all, her grandmother is Uzumaki Mito, isn't she? In addition, Tianyi discovered that Uzumaki Kushina had not yet arrived in Konoha. Not really. There were many different opinions about the time when she came to Konoha in her previous life. Some say that they are orphans brought back after the Uzumaki clan was exterminated. There is also a saying that they were brought back first, but the Uzumaki clan was destroyed soon after. Tianyi actually prefers the latter. Uzumaki Mito, you're actually starting to hit on her? Is that going to be a problem? Take it easy, kid. This guy is not such a simple person. When facing her, it's best not to have any bad thoughts, otherwise you won't be able to hide it from her. Uchiha Nobuhiko was not happy after hearing this. Instead, he warned with a serious and worried look on his face. Only those who have actually faced Uzumaki Mito and dealt with her know how terrifying this woman is. Although she is the wife of Hokage Senju Hashirama, she is not a vase roll. Tianyi looked at Xinyan in surprise and asked, Father, have you met her? Do you know her well? With the memories of his past life, he immediately understood the possible hidden meaning in Nobuhiko's words. Ninetales has the ability to sense good and evil. Uzumaki Mito, who is a Jinkraki, naturally also has it. What's more, this woman also has the Kagura Heart's Eye, which is inherited from the Uzumaki clan. If the two are used together, her ability to see through the good and evil in people's hearts will only become more perverted. I don't know much about it. But I know something about Ninetales from your grandfather, that monster has the terrifying ability to sense good and evil, and Uzumaki Mito, who is a Jinkraki, also shares this ability. So, anyone who targeted her in the past usually ended up with a bad ending. Speaking of this, Uchiha Nobuhiko also looked a little sad. Is that so? Tianyi nodded in surprise, but thought to himself, sure enough. He thought that his grandfather might have heard the news from Uchiha Madara back then. After all, it was Uchiha Madara who captured Ninetales and contracted it to become a summoning beast. Uchiha Madara is certainly well aware of Ninetales' abilities. By the way, father, why do I feel that there are even quite a few books on sealing techniques in the clan library, especially the books on the supremacy of three-tomo Sharingan? I feel like there are a lot of missing books. Logically speaking, as an ancient bloodline family with a history of more than 1,000 years, this should not be the case. Could it be that Uchiha Madara took these away when he left Konoha? Tianyi couldn't help but ask the doubts that had been hidden in his heart for many days. Haha, did you find out? Uchiha Nobuhiko listened and nodded with a wry smile. Isn't it just as you guessed? When Uchiha Madara left Konoha, he wanted to take the Uchiha clan with him, but we chose to refuse because we were tired of war and accustomed to the peaceful life in Konoha. As a result, he was so angry that he scrolled up a large number of precious books and resources in the family. He even took away the Uchiha fan, the family heirloom. Can there be no missing pieces? Otherwise, a clan as powerful and ancient as the Uchiha wouldn't have only inherited a few scraps of sealing techniques. That's all there is to it, and many of them were obtained by the tribesmen one after another later. Really? Tianyi was speechless after hearing this, and thought to himself, it seems that when I face Uchiha Madara next time, I have to find a way to get all these Vice Admiral books back from him. This is a classic book accumulated over thousands of years. There are so many good things, which will be of great help to Tianyi in continuing to derive the chakra system and other cultivation methods in the future. Thinking of Uchiha Madara, Tianyi thought of White Zetsu again. He once again used his mental power to cover every area near his home, including underground, and only felt relieved after confirming that there was no White Zetsu. In fact, in the past few days, he occasionally found traces of White Zetsu lurking underground or in trees in the tribe or village. Apparently, Konoha and many parts of Uchiha are under White Zetsu's surveillance. Uchiha Madara never seemed to give up monitoring Konoha. Come to think of it, if he didn't know anything about Konoha or other ninja villages, how could he do things in secret? Don't think about it. Uchiha Nobuhiko saw Tianyi's disappointed expression and thought that he was still unhappy about the lost books, so he immediately comforted him. Okay. That's Uchiha Madara, he wants to take it away, who could stop him in the first place? Unfortunately, he is dead, and the books he took away are completely lost. Unless we temporarily revive him through reanimation jutsu and get the location of the buried data from him, it is basically impossible to retrieve it, and reanimation jutsu is a forbidden technique listed in the Book of Seals. For the time being, it's impossible for us as Uchiha to get it, unless there's a chance if you become Hokage someday. Forget about it for now. After hearing this, Tianyi really wanted to tell his father that Uchiha Madara was still alive and well, and was still causing trouble. This guy will definitely choose his own agent from Uchiha in the future. Because of my appearance, there will definitely be more and more bigger changes in the future. The one who is chosen may not necessarily be Uchiha Obito. He or Fugaku are actually very dangerous. After all, they are brothers and meet the requirements. Thinking of this, Tianyi felt an even stronger sense of crisis. He immediately said to his father, "Don't worry. I won't think too much about it." "That's good." Uchiha Nobuhiko nodded in satisfaction. "Once you successfully obtain some more advanced sealing techniques from Tsunade, see if you can create or optimize a preservation seal or something like that. This way, we can be safer when we open the Sharingan eye-opening method and 3-tomo Sharingan training method to some of our tribe members in the future. It can ensure to a certain extent that these skills will not be leaked through various channels. If it were someone else, he wouldn't have made such a request. But if it was Tianyi, Uchiha Nobuhiko felt there was still a chance. After all, Tianyi can always create miracles. A confidentiality agreement? I get it. I'll find a way. After hearing this, Tianyi nodded in understanding and agreed directly. Then he chatted with his father for a while and asked him about the security team, the family contribution system, and the education reform. After understanding the progress, he waited for his mother to prepare the meal, and after eating, he returned to his room and began practicing chakra and Sharingan eye-opening method. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 30. The next morning, shortly after arriving at school, Tianyi was called to the principal's office by Tsunade, where he also met his homeroom teacher. After hearing that Tenuka was accepted as a disciple by Tsunade and could only go to school as shadow clone, and that his real self would follow Tsunade to learn medical ninjutsu, the principal and the class teacher were very surprised. I didn't expect that Tenuka-san would be chosen by Master Tsunade to be his disciple. Congratulations! There's absolutely no problem with using shadow clone to go to school. It's okay if you don't come. I've heard about Tianyi's recent performance and I know that you are making rapid progress in your studies. There's not much that school can teach you. From now on, you should study hard under Master Tsunade. The principal praised Tianyi, encouraged him a few words, and then directly agreed to the task. The head teacher stood aside and nodded repeatedly, but did not dare to speak. It is necessary for Shadow Clone to go to school. He is still young. In addition to studying, it is also important for him to interact with his peers. Tsunade listened, nodded slightly, and added. Tsunade-sama, you are right. You are very thoughtful. Let's do as you say. After hearing this, the principal quickly agreed. That's it. I'll take the person away first. With that, Tsunade took Tianyi and left the principal's office with the principal and the homeroom teacher. After Tianyi created a shadow clone to replace him in the classroom, he took Tianyi himself to the Hokage building. Hey? Isn't this the way to the hospital? Teacher. Halfway through the journey, Tianyi asked with some confusion. Tsunade nodded affirmatively and said, this is the way to the Hokage's building. The old man insisted that I take you to see him, so I couldn't help it. But, at this point, Tsunade suddenly stopped, waved her hand to cast an isolation barrier to cover her and Tianyi, looked at Tianyi with a serious face and warned, I guess the old man will often come to you to ask about your well-being and talk to you in the future, you must be careful next time, that old fellow may not have good intentions towards you, he's probably trying to brainwash you and make you a tool for him to suppress and control the Uchiha in the future. Don't be fooled by him, understand? Tianyi felt warm in his heart when he heard Tsunade's heartfelt words. He looked at Tsunade with emotion and nodded, yes. Teacher, I'll remember that. I will be careful and won't be framed by him. You know, I'm not stupid. Hee hee. Tsunade smiled and pinched Tianyi's cheek and said jokingly, indeed, judging from your performance yesterday, you are actually a little fox, the old man wanted to brainwash you, but he made a wrong calculation from the beginning. It's good that you have a good idea about this matter. Pay more attention. That's it. Keep going. With that, Tsunade waved her hand to dispel the barrier and continued to move forward with Tianyi. Although there seems to be no change, Tianyi can feel that Tsunade's steps are much lighter than before. Obviously, being honest with him about this matter helped her relieve a lot of psychological burden. This is actually a stupid woman. Don't worry. Teacher, I will never let you follow the tragic fate you were destined to have. Tianyi swore secretly in his heart. He is not a saint, but he is willing to give back enough kindness to those who are truly good to him. Soon, the two arrived at the Hokage building and went up to the second floor. Bump. While Tianyi was looking a little stunned, Tsunade kicked open the door of the Hokage's office. The door slammed against the wall with a bang, making a cracking sound, as if it was howling. The third-generation member who was sitting at the desk and talking to Danzo with a sullen face looked over with some surprise and anger. When he saw it was Tsunade, only helplessness and headache remained on his face. He really had no way to deal with his disciple. He discovered that none of his 3 disciples was normal. Tsunade, can't you just open the door? I'll tolerate it even if you don't knock. This is already the 3rd door I've changed this month. The 3rd generation rubbed his temples with his hands, speechless. Sorry, I'm used to it. Tsunade replied without any sincerity, then pulled Tianyi to his front and said, Here. I brought my apprentice to you. If you have anything to say, hurry up, I still have to take him to the hospital to learn medical ninjutsu. The 3rd generation's attention was immediately diverted. They looked at Tianyi, gave what they thought was a kind smile, and were about to say something. But the next moment he was interrupted by Danzo. Etc. Danzo pointed at Tenkate with an angry look on his face and said to the third generation, Hiruzen, what do you mean? You handed this brat over to Tsunade? And let him become Tsunade's apprentice? Are you crazy? Obviously sending him for root training would be the most correct choice, but you, Sarutobi Hiruzen, chose not to do that and instead made him become Tsunade's apprentice. In this case, wouldn't this kid become the third generation's apprentice and a direct descendant of the Hokage? It even bears the mark of Senju. Do you, Sarutobi Hiruzen, know what this means? Is this an attempt to create another Uchiha Kagami? Or is it an attempt to create a disaster so that the Uchiha can have a chance to become a Hokage in the future? Danzo was really furious at this point. He couldn't understand third generation's actions at all. Danzo. The third generation was also angry at being slapped in the face by Danzo in front of Tenkate and Tsunade. They stared at Danzo with sharp eyes and scolded him, I remember I had already decided this matter with you. Tenkate is a potential medical ninja genius, and a staunch inheritor of the will of fire. I think it's appropriate for him to become Tsunade's apprentice. It's not your turn to make decisions on this matter. Do you understand? At this point, the third generation gave Tianyi an apologetic smile and said, I'm sorry. Little Tianyi, I scared you. Where? Tianyi was flattered when he heard this and waved his hands. He looked at third generation with admiration and said, so the reason why Mr. Tsunade accepted me as his apprentice was because of your recommendation. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Haha. The third generation smiled when he heard this. He liked the way Tianyi admired him. His choice was indeed right. Kite said, don't be so polite. Just call me Grandpa Hokage. Remember to learn from your teacher in the future, Grandpa. I hope you can become the backbone of Konoha in the future. Yet. I will definitely work hard to contribute to Konoha. Tianyi nodded firmly. Tsunade saw all of Tianyi's behavior. He looked calm on the surface, but he was already complaining in his heart, what a pity. I was worried that this kid would be brainwashed by the old man and suffer at his hands. Looking at his current behavior, I am definitely overthinking it. Perhaps I should be more worried about the old man being fooled by him. If she had not been frank with Tianyi before and she knew that Tianyi was acting, she would have believed him. This kid is definitely a monster. She had a hunch that her teacher would never be able to beat Tianyi. Danzo actually has similar feelings. Although Tianyi acted very sincere and well-behaved, he admired the third generation very much. But for some reason, when he saw these, he felt they were disgusting, hypocritical, and hideous. He wished he could tear Tianyi's face apart. But after looking at Tsunade behind Tianyi, he finally held back. Because he knew very well that if he really dared to do so at this moment, Tsunade, this unruly woman, would definitely beat him to death with her super strength fist. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 31. Therefore, even though Danzo was furious at the moment, he didn't dare to vent his anger on Tianyi at the end. Instead, he looked at the third generation with a gloomy face and said, Hiruzen, you will regret this. Humph. After saying that, he threw his hands and stormed out of the Hokage's office. When he was beside Tianyi, the old man looked at Tianyi with a vicious look. Tenkate pretended to be frightened, took a step to the side, and grabbed Tsunade's hand. Tsunade. This acting is really lifelike. There is absolutely no sign of acting on his part, he is simply a natural-born movie star. Danzo, I'm the Hokage. Seeing Danzo about to go away, the third generation became angry and stood up and roared at his back. Danzo couldn't help but pause when he heard this. Then, he stormed away at an even faster speed. Just from the sound of his heavier and more forceful footsteps, one could tell how angry and aggrieved he was at the moment. The only thing I can say is that third generation's behavior is cool. After hearing this, Tianyi couldn't help but want to give him a thumbs up. This is simply murderous and heartbreaking. They don't miss any opportunity to disgust Danzo. Ahem. After Danzo walked away, the third generation withdrew their gaze, suppressed their anger, cleared their throat awkwardly, gave Tianyi an apologetic smile and said, I'm sorry to have made a fool of myself. Tianyi, don't take Danzo's words to heart. That's just who he is. He's just jealous. Come, let's have a good chat. Next, the third generation chatted with Tianyi for half an hour, until Tsunade became really impatient. He stopped and let Tianyi and the others leave. All right. Let's stop here for today. Remember to come visit Grandpa Hokage more often in the future. You're most welcome to come over. Through this conversation, the third generation became more certain that Tianyi indeed highly recognized the will of fire, admired him very much, and loved the village very much. This potential material. That's enough for third generation. He would often invite Tianyi over to chat, guide and brainwash him step by step, so that he would eventually become what he wanted. In his opinion, dealing with a 5-year-old child is easy, right? After hearing this, Tianyi nodded repeatedly, but he was quite speechless in his heart. This old guy really doesn't hide it at all. Do you really think I'm a naive boy who knows nothing? However, confusing the third generation is also what he needs to do now. For the time being, it is not the time for him to confront or even fall out with the third generation. Okay. We're leaving first. Tsunade had already lost his patience, so he said something to the third generation, then he quickly left the Hokage's office with Teniki in tow. The third generation shook their heads helplessly and didn't care too much. Soon, Tsunade took Tianyi to the Hokage building and came to her office at the Konoha Shinobi Hospital. Pointing to a large bookshelf filled with books, he said to Tianyi, "Here. Next, you should finish reading all the books on this bookshelf and understand them first. If you have any questions, you can always ask me. After you finish reading, we will start the next stage of learning. Of course, during this period, I will occasionally take you to participate in some minor operations to give you some experience in curing illnesses and saving lives. Is there any problem?" As for the teaching of medical ninjutsu, Tianyi has already mastered healing jutsu, healing techniques and many other medical ninjutsu, so there is no need to learn more for the time being. What he needs now is more accumulation of medical knowledge. Okay. This is exactly what Tianyi wants. What he wants is the permission to read these medical books. As for curing illnesses and saving lives and learning medical ninjutsu, these can be postponed. I made a wish. What would be the result of exposing some of my comprehension talents in front of Tsunade? The next moment, a string of information flooded into Tianyi's mind. The feedback given by the talent wishes safety, and Tsunade is trustworthy in this regard. Tianyi felt relieved immediately. Tianyi immediately pulled out a relatively basic medical book that he had never read before from the bookshelf, sat down on the sofa, and began to read it quickly. The pages of the book are almost turning and leaving after images. Tsunade's eyes twitched after watching for several seconds. She found that Tianyi showed no sign of correcting his behavior, so she couldn't help but ask, "Is this how you read a book? Are you sure you can read it all this way? Are you sure you can learn from it? Isn't this nonsense?" "Of course you can." Tianyi listened, his hands and eyes kept moving, while he continued to turn the pages of the book. Kide said, "I forgot to tell you, teacher, I have a photographic memory and the ability to memorize and learn quickly, the understanding is also good, this rhythm is what I have tried and it is the most suitable speed for me." "No, how do you think I was able to read and master all the ancient books in our family in just over a month? Although many of the clan's classics have been lost, the number is still considerable." "Ha!" Tsunade was slightly stunned when she heard this, and said in disbelief, "Is this true? Can I really remember and understand it this way? Let me verify it." Having said that, Tsunade immediately stood up and walked over to take the medical book from Tianyi's hand, and began to flip to the content that Tianyi had read before, asking questions selectively. As a result, not surprisingly, Tianyi really remembered everything and had a deeper understanding of these contents. Hiss! This made Tsunade gasp, and she looked at Tianyi as if he were a monster. "It seems that the old man and I have underestimated you before. I knew you were a genius, but I didn't expect you to be this evil. Since you have this talent, don't waste it. Continue to study at your own pace in the future." But, at this point, Tsunade looked at Tianyi with a serious expression and warned, "Don't tell the third generation about your talent, and it's best not to tell even your classmates. When you are reading here, be careful not to let people passing by notice your abnormality, otherwise, the third generation's attitude towards you probably wouldn't be what it is today. He prefers things beyond his control, and your talent undoubtedly lies in this category. Do you understand?" Tsunade feels that this terrifying talent of understanding is much better than that of her second grandfather. The key point is that comprehension is not only used to learn medical skills, but it can also be used to improve ninjutsu and strength. She could foresee that with Tianyi's comprehension, if he was given a few more years to grow, his strength would probably reach an extremely high level. It is not impossible that he will even surpass his second grandfather or even great-grandfather in the future. Such a good seedling, and also her disciple, she didn't want her to die prematurely because of her talent being leaked. Of course, she did this also for Konoha's sake. Although she had only been in contact with Tianyi for 2 days, she had already roughly deduced Tianyi's personality. This is a good child with high IQ and EQ, great talent and a sense of gratitude. In the future, as long as she trains and teaches Tianyi well, guides him onto the right path, and waits for him to grow up, he will become another pillar of Konoha and lead Konoha to greater glory. On the contrary, if his talent is leaked, causing him to be targeted, suppressed, or even persecuted by the third generation and Danzo, the result will inevitably lead to the worst and most out-of-control situation. If one thing goes wrong, it may lead to the destruction of Konoha. So, she was not only considering Tianyi, but also the future of the village. Tianyi's parents must be aware of his talent. With Uchiha's strength and background, even if Tianyi's talent was exposed, she didn't think that the third generation would be able to do anything to Tianyi in a short period of time. At most, it would force Tianyi to retreat into the Uchiha tribe's territory and develop secretly, hoping to launch a counterattack in the future. This was not what she wanted to see. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 32. I understand. I'll pay attention. Tianyi had no idea that Tsunade was thinking so much at the moment. When he heard Tsunade's concerned words, he would be lying if he said he was not touched. He felt that he had made the right choice of teacher. This time the test also achieved its purpose. When the time is right and the relationship with the teacher is better, we may be able to involve the teacher and even Senju in some subsequent industrial plans. This way, my Uchiha Interest Alliance plan will definitely go much more smoothly. Tianyi thought to himself. That's right, showing off his strong understanding and learning ability was also his way of testing Tsunade. If Tsunade's reaction did not satisfy him, at most he would reveal some of his own comprehension talents to the third generation. I'll just be more careful next time. But the probability of this happening was low from the moment he started to test it. After all, he made a wish. The power of desire is absolute. In terms of industry, Tianyi thinks that he can use medical books and herbal medicine to study medicines that can strengthen the body, restore cellular energy, mental energy, temper the spirit, purify the blood, and so on. In addition, by combining sealing techniques, it is also possible to create medical talismans or even ninjutsu talismans. The medical talisman is a good point of entry. I can definitely use this as an opening to learn advanced sealing techniques from Tsunade. Tianyi suddenly thought of this in his heart. However, he did not speak in a hurry. He had to wait a while and read the medical skills and information of the hospital first, further improve his medical ninjutsu, and obtain Tsunade's approval in this regard. Well, as long as you know what's going on, that's it. Seeing this, Tsunade nodded with satisfaction, returned the medical book in his hand to Tianyi, then stood up and returned to his seat to continue processing the documents. At school, Tianyi is in his class. Seeing Tianyi's shadow clone return to his seat, Ryuju and the other two in front turned around. Shikaku asked curiously, Tenaki, it was Tsunade-sama who asked you to go out just now, right? When did you meet Lady Tsunade? What did she want from you? Can you tell me? Logically speaking, Tsunade, who is from Senju, should not have any intersection with Tenaki. But Shikaku's mind raced, and he suddenly remembered the reputation of Tianyi, the medical ninjutsu genius who had been widely circulated in the village recently, and he felt that he had guessed the truth. Minato on the side also looked at Tianyi with curiosity. Shikaku, you guessed it, didn't you? Tianyi saw Shikaku's somewhat understanding look, shrugged slightly and said, Teacher Tsunade thought I had a good talent for medical ninjutsu, so he tested me before we parted last night and officially accepted me as his apprentice. She came here today to say hello to the school for me. From now on, I will need to spend a lot of time learning medical ninjutsu and medical knowledge from her. Minato and the others looked at Tianyi in surprise after hearing this. So what should we do about skipping classes and training? Minato asked anxiously. However, Ryuju stroked his chin and looked at Tianyi seriously, are you a shadow clone? Hey? Is this true? Minato, hi, and others also reacted immediately and looked at Tianyi in surprise. Danzo even touched Tianyi's arm and muttered, "It doesn't feel like it." Haha. It's just you, Shikaku. Your brain is just so quick. Tianyi smiled heartily and said frankly, "Yes, I am indeed just a shadow clone." At this point, Tianyi looked at Minato again and said, "As for the training camp, it will naturally proceed as planned. I didn't say I could only create one shadow clone at a time. I can definitely use shadow clone to learn medical skills from the teacher. Anyway, in the early stages, you will definitely focus on reading and learning, and there will be very few opportunities for practical practice. Even if there is, with my proficiency in shadow clone and my control over chakra, shadow clone can complete this operation on my behalf, so, just be at ease. The most urgent thing is for you to master the shadow clone technique as soon as possible." Minato and the others all breathed a sigh of relief and nodded in unison, "We'll get it done as soon as possible." The main reason was that when Tianyi was guiding them in their cultivation, they made such rapid progress that they naturally did not want to miss such an opportunity. Who doesn't have a dream of becoming a genius? Another half-month has passed in a flash. This morning, in the training ground in the backyard of the Tian family. Swish, swish, swish. Tianyi performed the powerful Bajiquan over and over again, and each punch broke through the air. He felt particularly good today. He could feel his blood and energy beginning to overflow, and the strength of his body was gradually being smoothly integrated into a whole. Rib. When the last punch was thrown, a violent sonic boom was produced directly in front of the fist. The air vibrated violently, stirring up the surrounding air and even the dust on the ground, making the training ground much more messy. This is Uchiha Nobuhiko and Fugaku, who had already noticed that something was wrong with Tianyi and had stepped back a distance, saw this and stared at the scene with wide eyes. This is without any chakra support. It is so powerful. Is this a breakthrough for Tianyi? Mingjin, it worked. Haha. At this time, Tianyi also retracted his fist and couldn't help laughing. It took 2 months, and I had the realization of the realm of the divine power of my previous life, plus daily medicinal baths. Without damaging his physical potential and growth, Tianyi's martial arts finally broke through to the Mingjin level again. How could he not be happy? In fact, according to his original estimate, he thought it would take less than a month to achieve this step. But in the end he miscalculated, or rather he could have done it, but he gave up. Because his body is still too young and too fragile, if he forces himself to exercise, he can indeed achieve Mingjin within a month, but the price he pays is not only the loss of his potential, but it is also very likely that he will not grow tall, or even not grow up at all. This is definitely not what Tianyi wants to see. Therefore, after realizing this problem after the first day of practice, Tianyi took the initiative to extend the time for improvement. I even learned the medical skills and medical ninjutsu of this world, and saw and understood the differences between the human body in this world and that in my previous life. After comparison, the medicinal bath formula of the previous life was integrated with Uchiha's medicinal bath formula and upgraded to create a medicinal bath formula that is several times more effective. This allowed Tianyi to develop Mingjin at the age of 5 without losing potential or the cost of growth. Well, under this new medicinal bath formula, his potential was not only not damaged, but improved. This is reflected in Tianyi, whose physical fitness has improved by 104 points in the past 2 months. This was an expected surprise. Congratulations! Tianyi, brother! At this time, Uchiha Nobuhiko and Fugaku came over and congratulated with a smile. Hehe! Congratulations! Congratulations! Kide smiled and said, Dad, your progress is actually quite fast. I estimate that in another half-month, you will be able to enter the Mingjin stage. Then I'll give you a surprise. At this point, he looked at Fugaku and said, as for big brother, you still need to practice. It would be great if you can break through within half a year. Fugaku's face fell slightly when he heard this, it's going to take so long. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 33. That's fast. Tianyi couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard this and said, if it weren't for my frequent guidance, your good physique and physical skills, and the medicinal bath combination I improved every day, this time would have been even longer. But compared to the benefits of cultivating Mingjin, this little time is actually not worth mentioning. You know, when we cultivate Mingjin, our control over every muscle and strength in our body will be transformed, qi and blood will also begin to develop. This will be of great benefit to the training and enhancement of physical skills, and the increase of vitality and chakra. Don't be ungrateful. In other words, Fugaku is his real elder brother, otherwise, he would ignore him. Didn't I expect that he hadn't even taught Minato and the others yet? That's right. Hehe. Then I'll go practice first and try to achieve Mingjin as soon as possible. Fugaku smiled awkwardly after hearing this, and as if he had been injected with chicken blood, he quickly ran to the side to practice Chinese martial arts. On the contrary, Uchiha Zinyan looked at Tianyi with a smile and said, "The surprise you mentioned could be that you have already created a method of cultivation after Mingjin, right?" He knew his son well. After being shocked so many times, he has become a little numb. No matter how unbelievable something is, when it happens to his son, he feels it is normal. Hey? You actually guessed it. Tianyi looked at his father in surprise and said, "Amazing. That's right. I have created a method to cultivate the second level of Chinese martial arts after Mingjin. I call it Anjin. In this state, one must train one's mind and skin, one must penetrate the tendons, bones and skin to make the hidden strength flourish. I won't tell you any more for now. I'll teach you after you break through the Mingjin. There is not much point in saying it now. Okay. Then I will continue to practice, and you can consolidate your realm on your own." Uchiha Nobuhiko nodded and walked to the other side to continue practicing. Tianyi devoted himself to cultivation again. After breakfast, Tianyi said to his mother, "Mom. Today is the weekend, so you don't have to prepare my lunch and dinner. I'm going to have a picnic with my classmates." "Oh." Uchiha Zinmei raised her eyebrows when she heard this and said, "Picnic? It's Minato and the others, right?" "Okay. But if we're having a picnic, we need to buy ingredients, right? Do you have enough money?" Tianyi had already mentioned the matter about Minato, Shikaku and the others to his parents early in the morning. Naturally, they also pay attention to these people that Tianyi investment has friendly relations with. They are indeed all good children. That's enough. There are still tens of thousands of taels left. I'm leaving first. Having said that, Tianyi took the ninja tool bag, left home, and separated a shadow clone first. Go to the hospital and continue reading medical books. After giving instructions to Shadow Clone, Tianyi walked towards the commercial street. Soon, Minato, Shikaku and the other two were seen waiting at the intersection. "Tianyi, you're a little late today. We've been waiting for more than 10 minutes. Hurry up." Luju saw Tianyi from afar and waved. Hey. Sorry. Tianyi heard this and ran over quickly, a little embarrassed. "I made a new breakthrough in my physical training during morning practice, and I exceeded the training time. Let's go. Let's go buy some ingredients first." As he spoke, Tianyi called Luju and others and walked towards the large farmers' market on the commercial street. "You've made another breakthrough in your physical skills? I don't know how you trained, you're just like a monster. We feel that we have improved rapidly with your help, but compared to you, it's nothing." Shikaku complained as he walked away, shaking his head. People really can't be compared. However, they are very lucky to receive Tianyi's recognition and guidance. Starting from 5 days ago, they have mastered the Shadow Clone technique, and then started using Shadow Clone instead of going to school during the day, and went to training every morning. The progress they have made in the past few days alone has allowed them to initially widen the gap with their classmates. People like Inyazukatsum and Abarame Shiki originally had similar strength to them, but now the gap has gradually begun to widen. I couldn't imagine how big the gap between me and Tianyi would be after practicing together for a few years. Thinking about it, Luju felt a little bit excited. After spending half an hour buying a lot of food at the farmer's market, the few of them rushed to the secret training base carrying a lot of things. On the way, Dingzo ran back home to get a complete set of picnic utensils, bowls and chopsticks, etc., and reunited with Tianyi and the others at the secret base. "Alright. Let's start this morning's training." Next, they did not start the picnic, but instead started practicing. Tianyi had already taught the Tianyi version of the bodybuilding technique to Liu and the other two a few days ago. At present, they have basically mastered it. But Tianyi still separated a shadow clone to teach them. He himself walked aside and began to practice ninjutsu. Currently, the main ninjutsu he mastered covers fire style, lightning style, and 2 wind styles. The focus of study and development is fire style. There is no way, since Uchiha's best ninjutsu is fire style. The family has a large number of fire-style ninjutsu of different levels and related training experience notes. At present, Tianyi has already mastered the Great Fireball, Long Fire, Impatience, and other fire styles to a relatively high level. As a result, he also conducted in-depth research on the form and nature transformation of fire style, which greatly increased the power of his fire style ninjutsu. Lightning style only mastered Thunder Ball and Ground Walk. By that time, in terms of swordsmanship, he had mastered many styles of swordsmanship collected by Uchiha. He also mastered the ninja sword technique, Uchiha Flame Leap Sword. Further broadened my skill pool. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to connect with Hitaki Sakumo yet, otherwise, if I could ask him for advice on the swordsmanship of this world and teach me the ninja swordsmanship, my swordsmanship would surely improve rapidly. Tianyi thought to himself. He thought it was necessary to master an excellent weapon attack method. Compared to ninjutsu, this thing consumes much less chakra and has extremely strong critical attack power. In the future, as his martial arts level improves, his physical strength and physical power will continue to increase. Correspondingly, the power of swordsmanship will naturally continue to increase rapidly. Fortunately, he had collected and learned some swordsmanship in his previous life. Combined with Uchiha's swordsmanship collection, his current swordsmanship level is pretty good. The five of them practiced enthusiastically for more than 2 hours, and the time was already past 10 in the morning. Tianyi stopped practicing and called to Minato and others not far away. Minato, Shikaku, you guys come with me to hunt for meat. Hi, and Dingzuo, you guys collect firewood and start processing the purchased vegetables, is that okay? No problem. Let's go. Minato and the others naturally had no objection, and they immediately split into 2 groups. Dingzuo and the others stayed behind, while Tianyi took Rouge and Minato to perform the body flicker technique and began to go deep into the forest to search for hunting targets. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 34. There are 3 wild boars 500 meters to the right, follow me. Soon, Tianyi locked onto the 3 wild boars with his powerful mental induction. He called Minato and Shikaku and rushed over. Shikaku, use the shadow imitation technique to bind and trip it remotely. Minato, follow me and kill it. Then, under Tianyi's command, the 3 of them cooperated well and successfully hunted down all 3 wild boars in a few breaths. Then, the 3 of them each carried one on their backs and started to rush back. On the way, Tianyi and his friends hunted 2 pheasants and 5 rabbits. Only then did he stop hunting and return to the secret training base. Wow! So many prey? It's only been more than 10 minutes? You guys are really amazing. Seeing the 3 people coming back with so much prey, Dingzuo and Hai couldn't help but exclaim. Haha! This is mainly thanks to Tianyi. This guy's perception range is so wide that he can easily find his prey. Shikaku put the wild boar off his back, smiled and pointed at Tianyi and praised him. Indeed. Minato beside him also nodded repeatedly. Only then did he realize that hunting was such a simple thing. By the way, over the past year or so, in order to save money, he actually tried to supplement his meat diet by hunting and fishing. However, we were just looking for rabbits, pheasants, and the like on the outskirts of the forest. Not every time you can reap rewards. How like Tianyi? It's like going to the forest to purchase goods. If he had this ability, his life wouldn't have been so difficult in the past. Alright. Let me show off my skills today and let you taste the skills I've been practicing recently. As he spoke, Tianyi used his sword skills to quickly deal with the wild boar and the pheasants, rabbits, and other animals, divided them into different categories, and then started to heat the oil in a pan and cook. Wow! Swordsmanship can be used like this. Also, Tianyi, your technique is so skilled. Tell me the truth, how long have you been practicing? Seeing Tianyi using swordsmanship to quickly process a number of prey like a butcher cutting up an ox, and cutting and cooking vegetables as smoothly as flowing water, Luju and the others were all surprised, and Luju couldn't help asking. Not long ago, just in the last few months I occasionally watched my mother cook and learned from her. After that, I spent some time pondering, how is it? Does it look like the real deal? Why did he propose a picnic during the weekend training today? In fact, it was just to show off his cooking skills to facilitate the implementation of his subsequent plans. More than that. Shikaku shook his head in amazement. She is even more skilled than my mom and even the chef at Dingzuo's barbecue restaurant. I just don't know what it tastes like. It smells better and better. Yet. Danzo also nodded repeatedly, his mouth almost watering. It looks and smells like he is indeed as good as the master chef in our store. Tianyi, when will it be better? Just wait. It will be quick. When Tianyi saw it, he shook his head with amusement. Half an hour passed in a flash. More than 10 dishes were prepared by Tianyi's skilled craftsmanship. All the food was placed on a large wooden table that Tianyi had cut out of wood a few days ago. All right. Let's eat. Tianyi immediately invited everyone to eat. Then we won't hold back. Let's get started. Danzo and others, who had been tempted by the aroma of the food, started to eat one after another. They each took a bite of the food and put it in their mouths, refusing it a few times. Several people widened their eyes slightly, looked at Tianyi in disbelief, and gave him a thumbs up in unison. Tianyi, you are amazing, aren't you? I didn't expect that these meals not only smell delicious, but also taste great. Besides, these dishes are all ones I've never eaten before. They're so delicious. Awoo. Awoo. What a delicious delicacy. The reincarnation of the god of cooking. You. Tianyi could hear the endless praises from several people, and his face was filled with smiles. Although I had other plans, I was very happy to receive praise today. It was worth the time he spent practicing cooking in his previous life. He learned all the 8 major cuisines of Uchiha in his previous life and mastered the essence. Isn't this useful? There are also many delicious foods in the Hokage world. But compared with Tianyi's previous life, he felt it was far different. Tianyi, I think with your cooking skills, you can definitely open a restaurant, and the business will definitely be booming. Shikaku couldn't help but say as he ate. When Tianyi heard this, his heart blossomed with joy. He was originally thinking about how to bring up this topic, and then get a few people to join in opening a store as their first joint business. This is also the first step in his plan, the Uchiha Interest Alliance plan, and also the most critical step. Not to mention Minato, if he could get Shikaku and the other 2 to join him, they would form a great alliance of interests. As long as the restaurant made more and more money, the relationship between the 3 of them and the families behind them would naturally become more and more complicated. It will be much easier to attract them to join more industries in the future. The only thing is that Shikaku is definitely the best assist player today. Yet. I agree. This way, I can eat the meals you cook every day. Hehe. Danzo nodded repeatedly while eating voraciously. He felt that what Luju said touched his heart. What are you thinking about? After hearing this, Hai glanced at Danzo speechlessly and said, it's impossible for Tianyi to open a restaurant and be a chef at such a young age. He still needs to study and practice to improve his strength. If he opens a restaurant, who will teach us? Well. Danzo came to his senses immediately after hearing this, and said with a look of disappointment, that's right. What a pity. You can't have both. Hehe. Shikaku then spoke up and suggested, it's not necessary to be the chef yourself, Tianyi, these dishes are all new dishes we have seen and heard of. They must have been created by you, right? You can definitely compile a recipe book, recruit a few reliable people, and teach them cooking skills, then open a shop and let these chefs run the shop. It's definitely worth it. It is not advisable to do everything yourself. This is a world where strength is supreme. Improving your strength is the most important thing. Money and other things are secondary. Hey? Yes. This is a good idea. Tianyi, what do you think? When Danzo heard this, his eyes lit up and he quickly looked at Tianyi and asked. It can be seen that he is very fond of this. Well, it's not impossible. Tianyi Zhuang pondered for a moment, looked around and said, recipes and teaching the chef are both easy to deal with. In order to prevent some recipes from being leaked, I can even mix some of my special spices and ingredients as an exclusive secret recipe that is in my hands alone. But it is definitely not enough for me to run this store by myself. Since it was you who proposed this, why don't you all contribute money, effort, resources, and channels? Shall we open this store together as a joint venture? This way, we can all make money together, and we won't be short of money in the future. What do you think? Well. After hearing this, Luju and others were slightly stunned. Obviously, they didn't expect Tianyi to say that. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 35. Wouldn't it be better if you let your family handle this kind of thing? Luju was puzzled. He felt that there was no need for Tianyi to share such benefits with them. Materials, manpower, funds, channels, etc., with Uchiha's financial resources, how can they not be managed? Well, before Tianyi could speak, Minato took the initiative to speak. Maybe I know why. I think it's you, Tianyi, who's worried that you won't be able to run this store well with the Uchiha name. After all, the Uchiha clan doesn't have a very good reputation in the village, especially those at the bottom, because of the problem of the police enforcement. They don't like the Uchiha clan very much. Isn't that right? After all, Minato came from the bottom of society and had seen and heard too many civilians who were dissatisfied with the Uchiha. He hit the point right away. Shikaku and the others may or may not know that Uchiha has a bad reputation among the villagers, but they didn't have a concrete idea of it before, so it was normal that they didn't expect it. That's right. Facing the questioning looks from Shikaku and the others, Tianyi nodded helplessly. It's just as Minato said. Because the Uchiha guard is doing the thankless work of law and order management, and most of the Uchiha are proud and don't bother to explain anything, the Uchiha has a bad reputation among the villagers. If we really open this restaurant under the Uchiha name and staff, then no matter how good the dishes are, at best we'll just break even. It's unlikely that you can make a lot of money from this. So, there's no need to bring Uchiha along. We can just do it on our own. What do you think? Well, he definitely didn't mean to secretly drag Inoshika-CH into the water. This. After hearing this, Luju and others became a little hesitant. Danzo said decisively, why hesitate? I agree. In addition to providing some funds, I can also provide a channel for the supply of food. It just so happens that our barbecue restaurant has the right channels. In addition, we also raise some poultry such as cattle, sheep, and pigs, and the quality is also very good. He actually doesn't care whether he makes money or not, because he never lacks pocket money anyway. This can be seen from the fact that he has endless snacks to eat every day. He mainly liked Tianyi's craftsmanship. He won't be able to bear it if he can't eat it often in the future. Even though he had only eaten it once, he had already completely fallen in love with it. Luju looked at Danzo helplessly. In fact, he had considered that if they opened a store in partnership with Tianyi, it might affect the family behind them and make the third generation have bad ideas. But Danzo agreed at this time, and Tianyi had been very attentive in teaching them recently, and was determined to make them stronger. It seemed inappropriate for him to refuse. He immediately said, I'll join in too. I can also provide some funds. Besides, I have a cousin who might make a suitable store owner. She had interned at Danzo's barbecue restaurant before, but she wanted to be the store manager, and Danzo's family didn't have a suitable position for her. But her ability is fine, I can guarantee that. However, I guess we'll have to let her take a stake. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be some. After hearing this, Yi also said, since you all agree, I naturally have no objection. I can provide funds. Seeing this, Tianyi said with a smile on his face, then it's settled. Thank you for your support. At this point, he looked at Minato and said, Minato, you should also take part. Well. Minato was slightly stunned after hearing this, and said with some embarrassment, forget it. You know I don't have any funds, nor do I have any connections or anything like that. That doesn't count. Tianyi shook his head and said, this is the first business we founded together. It will definitely not be the last. How can we leave you behind? Well, I'll lend you some money for your investment. Besides, you come from a commoner family, so you should know some reliable, hardworking, and capable people, right? When we need your help in recruiting people, don't refuse. Minato must not be left behind in this matter. Although it seems like he is giving money to Minato, look who made Tianyi appreciate his talent. This little investment would be more valuable than teaching him the Tianyi bodybuilding technique and a few ninjutsu. That's right. After hearing this, Luju and the other two nodded in agreement. And advised, Minato, just agree. If you don't have enough money, we can lend you some, you don't have to pay it back for now. When the restaurant makes money, you can pay it back to us. If you're my brother, don't refuse. Everyone said so. What else did Minato say? Thank you very much, everyone. I agree. Minato looked at everyone with a touched and grateful expression and nodded, not wanting to let everyone down and agreeing. Haha. Very good. Seeing this, Tianyi laughed out loud, then discussed the details of opening the store with a few people while eating and assigned some preparatory work. Tianyi handed over the task of finding a suitable store to Liu and Hai. The issue of food supply channels was handed over to Danzo. Minato was in charge of recruiting, with Shikaku and Hai helping out. Tianyi wrote the recipes as quickly as possible and at the same time, recruited several suitable chefs and apprentices, and began to teach them cooking skills and the preparation of new dishes in advance. In the next few days, Tianyi and his friends became even busier. The store was found on the third day. Danzo also easily negotiated the food material channel. The same is true for employee recruitment and training. The remaining things were chef training and staff training. In order not to delay everyone's training time, Tianyi took it over himself. An extra shadow clone was sent out to teach and train them. As for the chefs, he directly signed an extraordinary 20-year contract with them, and the penalty for breach of contract was also set extremely high. Of course, the remuneration is correspondingly high. With the reputation of Uchiha and the reputation of the Inoshika CH clans, these chefs would not dare to play any tricks. The news of several people opening a shop together naturally could not be concealed from those who were interested as they went through the process of renting a shop, contacting material channels, recruiting personnel, and training chefs. The family members behind Shikaku and the others knew about it immediately. That night, the three families gathered at Danzo's house and held a trial for the three men. Ryuju and the other two were so frightened that they stood there trembling, each stealing glances at their father, and did not dare to speak first. Tell me about it. How did you guys come up with the idea of opening a restaurant with Uchiha Tenkei? Haven't you discussed this with us yet? Whose idea was this? Liu Ming, the father of Ryuju, lost his eyes to three people, and finally his eyes fell on Ryuju. When Hai and Dingzuo heard this question, they subconsciously looked at Shikaku. This made Liu Ming raise his eyebrows and asked, "So, it was you, Ryuju, who first proposed it? I thought it would be Uchiha Tianyi. You can tell me your reasons. It'd be better if you can convince me, otherwise, you know. This kid has no idea what kind of trouble their actions will bring to the family." After hearing this, Ryuju knew he couldn't evade the question, so he could only bite the bullet and say, "Indeed, I was the one who proposed it first. The main reason was that we didn't think much about it at the time. Dingzo and I all thought that Tianyi's cooking skills were too good. The dishes were all developed by him, all brand new. I thought this was a good idea, so I decided to do it." He did not say that Tianyi took the lead in suggesting that everyone open a store together. Although this is the fact, Ryuju doesn't want to put all the blame on Tianyi. He thinks this is not a good idea. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 36. Oh. Liu Ming raised his eyebrows after hearing this, and said noncommittally, "Even if that's the case. But do you know that this will bring a lot of trouble to the family? It will easily arouse the vigilance and dissatisfaction of the third generation. You are not unaware of Uchiha's reputation in the village. You know that the third generation doesn't like the Uchiha clan, right?" Speaking of this, Liu Ming felt a little disappointed. "Of course I know. But what does this have to do with Tianyi?" After hearing this, Shikaku gritted his teeth, puffed out his chest and retorted, "You can't be unaware that Tianyi was accepted as a disciple by Master Tsunade more than 20 days ago, right? How could such a thing be allowed without the permission of the third generation adults? So, Tenkei is different from the ordinary Uchiha. I don't think that if we open a store together, it won't cause dissatisfaction among the third generation adults. It's just a few kids opening a store together. The impact is not as serious as you think, Dad. Want to bluff him? It's impossible. With his intelligence, how could he not have realized and thought about these problems of his father over the years? He had figured out the trick long ago. All I can say is that it's a good thing that Tianyi was accepted as a disciple by Master Tsunade, otherwise, they really wouldn't be suitable to open a store together." Oh. After hearing this, Ryuju raised his eyebrows slightly and showed a playful smile. "It seems that you have thought about it seriously. Not bad. I have noticed that the strength of the three of you has increased very quickly recently, which is somewhat abnormal. It looks like this is all Uchiha Tenkei's credit. So, is that why you defend him so much?" Since they knew that their little brat had caused trouble, they would naturally investigate it seriously. This investigation revealed that the three little kids from their three families had recently used Shadow Clone to skip classes and go practice with Uchiha Tianyi. The key point is that Uchiha Tianyi was not only very generous, but also taught his improved bodybuilding techniques to Shikaku and others. His teaching ability is also very strong, which has enabled Shikaku and others to make rapid progress recently. How to not surprise them, really? In fact, after knowing this, today they called Luju and others over just to scare them and make them think more about what they do next time. I'm afraid they'll do it without thinking about it. Fortunately, Luju did not disappoint them. Not entirely. This is just one of the reasons. The main reason is that we are good friends. Luju knew that the matter had been resolved, and he breathed a sigh of relief, spreading his hands lazily. That's right. When Danzo and Hai heard this, they nodded in agreement. Although they had not been together for a particularly long time, only about a month in total, they considered themselves to be close friends. Haha. Friends. After hearing this, Lu Ming and the other two looked at each other and smiled knowingly. It's not bad for my kid to have such a good friend. They don't actually have much prejudice against Uchiha, unlike the third generation. I didn't want to have more contact with them before because I was afraid of trouble and misunderstandings from the third generation. But since Tenaki is Tsunade's disciple, he is naturally different from ordinary Uchiha. Of course, with Lu Ming's intelligence, it was easy for him to see what the third generation was planning by having Tsunade accept Uchiha Tenaki as his apprentice. It's nothing more than training the next Uchiha Kagami. Even more extreme, they want to brainwash and control Uchiha Tianyi. In the future, he will be used to suppress and even control Uchiha. What a pity, third generation might have miscalculated this time. Lu Ming thought with a sigh in his heart. For some reason, he still had a kind of gloating mentality and wanted to watch the show. Perhaps it was because as the third generation's power had become more and more consolidated and powerful over the years, he began to suppress all ninja clans with interest. Seize the village's interests to develop and expand the Sarutobi clan, even Inoshika Ch, the Hokage's staunchest ally, was no exception. This would naturally make Lu Ming and the others feel dissatisfied and have other ideas. If Tenaka had not appeared and things had developed along the original trajectory, they would have placed a heavy bet on Namikaze Minato, the future fourth Hokage, through Shikaku and his men, and would have fully supported Namikaze Minato in his ascent to the throne. Unfortunately, in that future, Namikaze Minato died young because of sealing 9 tails. After the third generation came to power again, the Inoshika Ch clan suffered even more severe repression. More masters were taken to the root and brainwashed by Danzo, becoming his tools to suppress dissidents and realize his ambitions. This may also be one of the fundamental reasons why the Konoha shinobi, including Inoshika Ch, chose to sit back and watch when the third generation was killed by Orochimaru in the future. There must be a cause for every effect. And the variable Tianyi appeared in this world. Tenaki was also accepted as a disciple by Tsunade, and Lu Ming felt that it might not be a bad idea to let Shikaku and the others follow Uchiha Tenaki to do some things. Judging from what he has learned so far about this little kid, as long as he doesn't die young, he will probably have a great future. He is looking forward to the day when Uchiha Tianyi overthrows the third generation in the future. He believed that there was a high probability that it would come. Brainwashing Tianyi? Not to mention that Tianyi is so smart that he can't succeed. Based on Lu Ming's understanding of Princess Tsunade, there was no way she would just sit back and watch something like this happen. Get along well with Uchiha Tenaki from now on. If you need anything, remember to tell us. After the three parents of Lu Ming looked at each other, Lu Ming reminded them, yes. Luju and the other two nodded in agreement. Another 10 days passed, the chef has finally been trained. With the ingredients prepared by Tianyi, the dishes copied by these chefs were not as good as his, but they were only 3 points behind. Compared with other restaurants in Konoha, the taste and freshness of the dishes are much better. On that day, SI High Restaurant officially opened, and many members of the Inoshika Ch and Uchiha families came to support it. The restaurant became famous immediately. Because of the excellent taste, the restaurant was at its peak as soon as it opened, business was booming, and it made a lot of money every day, which soon attracted the attention of third generation. How did Uchiha Tenaki get mixed up with the Inoshika Ch kids? Third generation frowned, but he remembered the next moment, oh. Yes. They are classmates and have always had a good relationship, let's use Shadow Clone to skip class and practice together, it seems that this is the reason. Although the third generation felt a little unhappy and wanted to stop it. But there is no suitable reason. At this time, he still insisted on inviting Tianyi over every week to brainwash him and increase his favorability. If we stop them from opening a store together now, all our efforts will fail and it will cause Tianyi's disgust and dissatisfaction. Forget it. It's just a restaurant, and the family behind them didn't get directly involved, it's mainly these little brats who are doing it themselves. Just think of them as playing around and making some pocket money. I think so. But after seeing what Anbu reported, that Sahai restaurant had made a net profit of no less than 2 million taels this month, third generation couldn't help but feel a little jealous. This is almost equivalent to the bounty of 2S level missions. After deducting the village's commission, there are even more than 2. It's simply huge profits. In recent years, he has been secretly developing the Sarutobi clan. However, due to its poor background, the Sarutobi clan lacked sufficient funds and resources. He had to secretly join forces with Danzo, Udaten Koharu and Midokado Homura to embezzle the village's funds and resources to fill this gap. He wanted to expand the Sarutobi clan's industry and gradually make the Sarutobi clan self-sufficient in terms of funds and resources. Make the family development structure healthier. But the results were not good. Tianyi and his gang succeeded as soon as they made their move, and the profit was so huge, it would be strange if he wasn't jealous. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 37. Perhaps, we can find a way to get someone to try to obtain the recipes and formulas of Sahai restaurant. Thinking of this, third generation's eyes lit up slightly. He thought this was a promising idea. However, this matter is not honorable. After obtaining it, you have to open a shop. I, as the Hokage, cannot do it, otherwise, it will not only affect my reputation, but will also cause Uchiha Tianyi's dislike. As expected, let's leave it to Danzo. I believe he has received the news by now. He can't sit still, right? Haha. Thinking of this, the corners of third generation's mouth curled up slightly. He felt that Danzo was really useful. It's no wonder that he was reluctant to abandon Danzo. Even though Danzo had always wanted to usurp the throne and had been expanding his roots beyond the limit, he had tolerated it. Speak of Cao and he will appear. Bump. Danzo really couldn't help but worry about the third generation, and the next moment he angrily opened the door and walked in. He shouted to the third generation, Hiruzen. Did you see that? I told you long ago that this brat is not an easy person to deal with. You should hand him over to me. Look, he's now forming cliques and factions, and is targeting the Inoshika clans. You should know that these 3 tribes are your staunch supporters. If Uchiha is lured over, won't it be a big problem? We can't let him continue like this. Leave him to me, Hiruzen. Danzo was really surprised by Tianyi's actions. This kid is really good at winning people's hearts. Wouldn't it be possible to give him a few more years so that Uchiha would have allies everywhere? This is absolutely not possible. Well, he would never admit that he was jealous of the profits of Sahai restaurant. His foundation only has this much funding each year, which is blocked by the third generation. Training costs money, expansion costs money, and experiments cost money. If he hadn't held most of the Shimura clan's profits in his hands, and used the clan's funds and resources to fill the gap in the roots' funds and resources, if it weren't for the fact that the Shimura family's casino was making a fortune, he couldn't hold on any longer. That's right. It's different from the third generation who tried their best to get financial resources from konoha to develop and expand the family. Danzo's main strategy is to go against the grain, constantly sucking blood from the Shimura clan and feeding back to his roots. This resulted in the Shimura clan not only failing to grow stronger under his rule over the years, but becoming increasingly weak. He even continued to select talents from the Shimura clan to join the root. If this guy wasn't so selfish and wanted to become Hokage, his contribution to the village would be greater than that of the third generation. The Shimura clan was extremely unlucky to have encountered a BD like him. In the original timeline, by the time of Naruto in the future, the Shimura clan had shrunk significantly, and there were not many people left. This is definitely a ruthless person. He wants the fat meat from Sahai restaurant. This time he had it planned out. The third generation would definitely not give it to him, but he would definitely have a share of the restaurant. He knew third generation, and third generation must be planning to open a restaurant as well. Danzo, you know this is impossible. The third generation shook his head, stood up to close the door, and temporarily drove away the Anbu ninjas hiding around. Then he looked at Danzo and said, just tell me your purpose. I don't believe you are really here for Uchiha Tianyi. He wouldn't ask Danzo to steal the recipes and cookbooks. If he can let Danzo take the initiative, he usually lets Danzo take the initiative. This way, he won't get stuck in the pan and there won't be any black stuff. How could Danzo not understand third generation? As soon as he heard his words and saw his posture, he realized that his guess was correct. I will take the Sekai restaurant from those brats and warn the Inoshika CH clans, but I want 70% of the restaurant's profits from now on. Danzo asked for a huge sum of money. Impossible. The third generation rejected it outright, 50-50 at best. Also, don't try to rob that restaurant. The place is rented and is not worth much. What is really valuable is the menu and recipe, just have someone secretly get these two things. When the time comes, you will be responsible for arranging for someone to master the recipes and formulas, and reopen a restaurant to run it, and the same effect will be achieved. It can also prevent the Inoshika CH clan and the Uchiha clan from overreacting. At the same time, it won't disrupt my plan to brainwash Uchiha Tenkaichi. Got it. When doing things, you have to be methodical. He felt that Danzo sometimes did things too roughly. Oh. Danzo raised his eyebrows and said, that's a good idea. Sure enough, you want to brainwash that brat to work for you. Oh. Are you still talking about me? He felt that the third generation was much more sinister and hypocritical than him. He appears to be righteous on the surface, but is actually full of sinister plots in secret. But, I got the recipe in the store, and you don't contribute anything, but you still want to take 50% of the profits. Isn't that too much? Danzo said with a dissatisfied look on his face. It seems like he has to do all the dirty work, while the third generation just sits back and enjoys the fruits of their labor and gets a share of the profits. There is no such thing as a settlement. What's so excessive? The third generation said as if it was a matter of course, I am the Hokage, and I only take half of it because you have given your full support. Danzo, you must be content. If you really don't want to do it, I believe Koharu or Yan should be willing to. After all, it's such a good industry. You. When Danzo heard this, he was furious. Shameless. Can the Hokage just take it for granted and get all the benefits? This Hokage position was supposed to be mine. Mine. Danzo couldn't help but roar in his heart at this moment. The more the third generation acted like this, the more he desired the position of Hokage. Danzo couldn't imagine how happy he would be if he were the Hokage at this moment, and the person who would be forced to do such dirty work and could only get half the benefits would be Sarutobi Hiruzen. Monkey, just wait for me, I will definitely take the position of Hokage back from you. I can only be the Hokage of Konoha. It can only be me. Danzo swore secretly. But for the time being, he suppressed these thoughts and said through gritted teeth, I agree, okay. If nothing else, I'll leave first. He couldn't stay in the Hokage's office for even a moment. He didn't want to see the ugly face of the third generation now. Remember to come quietly and don't let anyone find out. Otherwise, it will be hard to explain. Do you understand? Seeing this, the third generation couldn't help but remind him again. You tell me? Let's go. Humph. Danzo retorted angrily, then opened the office door and left quickly. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 38. The Uchiha clan, a member of the Tenkaichi family. Tianyi, who had just returned from training and was preparing to have dinner, was called into the study by his father, Uchiha Nobuhiko. Uchiha Nobuhiko waved his hand and set up a barrier of isolation. Then, he looked at Tianyi with a gloomy gaze and said, I heard that your Sahai restaurant is doing very well. It's very profitable. Tell me. How much is the net profit this month? Well. Tianyi was slightly stunned when he heard this and asked, Dad, why are you asking this all of a sudden? The profit is not bad. This month's net profit is 2.35 million. I own 50% of the shares, so I can get 1.175 million taels. What's wrong with that? Hiss. 1.17 million? That much? Uchiha Nobuhiko took a deep breath after hearing this, and stared at Tianyi with wide eyes. I heard that the recipe and formula were all provided by you. Tianyi nodded again, yes. What's the problem? Uchiha Nobuhiko said with some sadness, what's the problem? Why did you choose to get your classmates to participate instead of choosing your family? With such high profits, this can be used as a family business to greatly increase the family's income. Do you know that some people in the family have objections to this and are very dissatisfied with you? and even want to force you to hand over the restaurant to the family to run. This is also why he pulled Tianyi aside to talk about this matter today. Because he was annoyed by the nagging of many senior members of the family and wanted to vent his anger here with Tianyi. Of course, he had suppressed the matter. After all, this is a business his son built on his own, without relying on the family's help. So there's nothing wrong with not bringing the family in, right? Of course, this will definitely have a certain impact on Tianyi and Xinyan's prestige in the clan. Trustworthy doesn't care. Compared with those tribesmen who were trying to make ends meet, he was more unwilling to let his talented son down. He knew very well that Tianyi was the future of Uchiha. There are several reforms that are obviously beneficial to the family, but they have never been passed. It would be strange if he could please these guys. When Tianyi heard this, he suddenly realized, that's why you asked me to talk to you, Dad. So what do you think? Me? Uchiha Nobuhiko listened, and when he smiled and said, of course I support you unconditionally. Don't worry, I have suppressed the voices from the family. However, their dissatisfaction cannot be eliminated for the time being. When it comes to interests, don't expect others to consider the overall situation. Tianyi was moved when he heard this, but he also felt disdain for those tribesmen. Oh! Such stupid and short-sighted people, I don't care if they are dissatisfied with me. Besides, this is my business. Why should I let my family run it? Isn't it good for me to earn the money myself? Or do you think the same, father? You kid. Uchiha Nobuhiko was amused when he heard this and reached out to touch Tianyi's forehead and said, are you touching me? As a father, I am not so short-sighted and utilitarian. I have already said that I have suppressed the matter for you, the family doesn't need your income. It's just that some people are too greedy. Don't take it too seriously. However, from what you said, it seems that you have other considerations besides making money when you recruited a few classmates to set up this restaurant. Can you tell me about it? Since Tianyi thinks that his family members are short-sighted, then this restaurant must be more than it seems. This made him think of the Uchiha Interest Alliance plan that Tianyi had mentioned to him. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration came to his mind, and he looked at Tianyi with wide eyes. Could it be? Haha. It seems like you guessed it, Dad. Tianyi saw this and smiled knowingly. There is nothing to hide. The reason why I chose to bring a few classmates to open this restaurant together, besides the fact that I lack the staff, funds, and food sources, of course, I also want to use this method to gradually win over my classmates who were born in various ninja clans and form an alliance of interests. In this world, only alliances of interests are the most reliable. What I'm doing will be of great help in easing the relationship between Uchiha and the major ninja clans of Konoha, and easing the conflict between Konoha and the village. As long as we have enough allies of interests, even if the third generation wants to touch us, they will have to think twice. Even in the future, if we have enough allies of interests and enough supporters, my own strength and reputation are sufficient. Under the general trend, I, Uchiha, may not be unable to produce a Hokage. What do you think, father? Hiss. Uchiha Nobuhiko took a deep breath when he heard this, and looked at Tianyi in amazement. You kid actually thought so far? Your father underestimated you. As he spoke, he couldn't help but stroke his chin and pondered, you know what, your idea is indeed much better than those radical ideas in the tribe, and it is very feasible. Haven't we managed to initially win over the Inoshika CH clans this time? Although, at present, it is impossible for the three tribes to actually make further friends with Uchiha. But with this introduction, plus the relationship between Tianyi, Liu, and the other two, when Shikaku and his group come to power in the future, it will only be a matter of time before the Inoshika CH clans and the Uchiha become more closely connected, or even form a true alliance. Tianyi shrugged and said affirmatively, isn't this obvious? If we really let the family get involved in this matter, not to mention that smart people like Shikaku and others will not agree, even if Shikaku and others agree, the family behind them will not agree, even the third generation will try to stop it. Father, you are not unaware of the reason, are you? Eat your meal one bite at a time, don't remember. The important thing is to take the first step, then the opportunities later will be much easier. It's just a restaurant, Tianyi has many ideas to make money. Indeed. Uchiha Nobuhiko nodded in agreement. Actually, I also felt that there was something wrong with those people in the family wanting to intervene in your restaurant, but I never thought of the key point. Now that you've said that, everything is clear. I also know how to thoroughly convince them and dispel their greedy thoughts, remove their discontent with you and me. in fact, it will make them feel guilty, and thus enhance our prestige within the clan. Hehe. My son is really smart. Then I'll leave the family to you, Dad. Tianyi nodded in understanding, and then said, tell the family members not to be anxious. If they want to make money, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. I have lots of ideas in my head about how to make money, a lot of money, it's just that many opportunities are not yet ripe, so it's not convenient to cooperate with the family. Let them cooperate with you as soon as possible to implement the family reform clauses I proposed. To unite the family, eliminate the bad reputation of the family in the village so that it will be easier to cooperate with other ninja clans in the future with some suitable industries, continuously expand and perfect my Uchiha interest alliance plan, eventually, gain enough beneficial allies and enough prestige to push someone from the Uchiha to the position of Hokage. He knew very well that the senior members of the family cared more about the position of Hokage than making money. Use this to tempt them and give them a boost, and the effect will be better. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 39. Oh. Sure enough, Uchiha Nobuhiko's eyes lit up when he heard this and he asked, is this your complete Uchiha interest alliance plan? It sounds much more reliable than the coup plan that those crazy guys in the family came up with. I will selectively convey these words to those trustworthy people in the family's upper echelons and convince them. I believe that with these baits, they should start to cooperate with me in the family reform. At this point, Xinyan paused and looked at Tianyi with burning eyes, but, do you really have many ways to make money? Nature. Tianyi nodded affirmatively, I already have plans for all of this. For example, the healing potion, detoxification potion, nutrition potion, bodybuilding potion, life potion, spiritual potion, and even blood purification potion that I am currently researching, and so on. Some of these have already been realized, and some are just ideas. I plan to invite my teacher Tsunade to join me and study these together when I feel I have learned enough in a while. After you succeed, you can invest money and technology with my teacher to open a corresponding pharmaceutical factory. When the time comes, the sale of potions may be able to attract families to join the market. Also, there is the combination of sealing techniques and medical ninjutsu to create medical talismans, even, combining ninjutsu and sealing techniques, creating ninjutsu symbols, and so on. If the research on the blood purification potion is successful, we can develop a blood purification potion suitable for ninja beasts. At that time, we can cooperate with the Inyazuka, Aberme and other ninja clans to open a ninja beast industry chain. In addition, I have a lot of ideas for home appliances, and I can work with Orochimaru on research and development in the future. Then, let the family, some friendly ninja clans, and even the village participate in this industrial chain, and sell advanced home appliances to the entire ninja world, and so on. In short, it's too easy for me to start a profitable industry. The real difficulty has never been creativity and technology, but other external environments. The most important thing is how to stabilize the third generation and prevent them from causing trouble, so, there's no rush for any of this, understand? Compared to the power of the Hokage and the prosperity of the family, money is the least important. I see. Although Uchiha Nobuhiko felt that the potions and medical talismans that Tianyi mentioned were incredible, he was very unsure whether his son could create them. But he still chose to believe Tianyi. Because, since Tianyi became enlightened, he has never let him down. Konoha Hospital, Tianyi used Shadow Clone to come to Tsunade's office to study as usual. Of course, more than a month had passed, and he had already finished reading and studying the medical books that were previously in Tsunade's office. I even got a lot of books from the hospital's library to study. You're here, kid? I heard that you recently opened a restaurant with the kids of Ino, Shika, and CH, and you're making a fortune. As soon as he came in, Tianyi saw Tsunade staring at him with burning eyes and asked. Well. Tianyi was speechless for a moment and said, even you, the teacher, know about this? It seems that the news spreads very quickly. It's true that the profit is not bad, but it's divided among 5 people. Besides, this little money shouldn't be a big deal to you, teacher, right? After all, your medical skills are so great, so your salary must be very high, right? Besides, the Senju family is also very wealthy. Tianyi actually knows very well that he, as a teacher, is a poor guy. If she asks this kind of question, you should be careful whether she is trying to borrow money from you. If it is used for legitimate purposes, Tianyi doesn't mind lending some money to his teacher. After all, Tsunade had done his best to teach him over the past month, answering any questions he had. But Tsunade is a gambler. He always loses every time he gambles, but he stubbornly refuses to admit it. For people like this, no matter how much money you have, it will never be enough to fill this bottomless pit. The money he earned didn't come from the wind, but he couldn't bear to let her suffer like this. However, since Tsunade is short of money, he can take the opportunity to propose money-making projects such as researching medical talismans and healing potions, and completely tie Tsunade to himself. I believe that with this relationship, if the third generation wants to touch her, Tsunade will probably fight them even harder. What are you talking about, kid? Tsunade was not stupid. She immediately realized that behind Tianyi's compliment to her, he was actually afraid that she would borrow money from him. Although she did have such thoughts, she was still very unhappy. This is still her character. Was I that obvious? Tsunade asked, looking at Tianyi speechlessly. Hey. Tianyi smiled awkwardly, spread his hands and said, I can't help it, I know you well enough, teacher. I tell you the truth. I did make some money from the restaurant, but it was all earned through hard work. Whether I am practicing or doing research, I will need a lot of financial support. Teacher, if you need to borrow money for other urgent needs, I will lend it to you without hesitation. I can even give you some, after all, you are my teacher and you have taken good care of me during this time. But if you're gambling, sorry, not a cent. I can't waste money or even aid the enemy. What? Tsunade's eyebrows immediately raised when she heard this, and she slammed the table and said angrily, what kind of image do you have of me, your teacher? How can I borrow money from you to gamble? Also, what do you mean by aiding the enemy? She just likes gambling, how does it become abetting the enemy? Well. Tianyi listened, looked at his teacher speechlessly and asked back, don't tell me you don't know, even many casinos in Konoha are actually backed by Danzo and even the third generation, you know that I and even Uchiha have been targeted and even persecuted by Danzo, and he also hates us extremely. If you borrow money from me and go to the casino to give him money, isn't that aiding the enemy? Ha! Tsunade was stunned and said, the old dog Danzo is behind Konoha and the casinos nearby. Even my teacher is involved? Is this true? Where did you hear this? She really didn't know this. This is actually not difficult to check. Anyone who is interested can easily find Danzo in the open. As for the third generation? My dad told me. Tianyi shrugged kide. Is it really like this? Damn it. Tsunade's face fell when he heard this, and he said in an unpleasant manner, so, all the money I lost in the casino over the years went into the pockets of the old man and old dog Danzo. This made Tsunade feel bad. Don't think she has no problem with third generation and Danzo. You know, the Senju clan has been rapidly declining in recent years and is now almost completely gone, which is not unrelated to their teachers, the third Hokage and Danzo. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 40. According to what her grandmother Uzumaki Mito told her, during the last Ninja World War, a large number of young and elite Senju were killed on the battlefield. However, the third generation only sent them to the most dangerous front lines with all sorts of plausible reasons, which cannot be used as evidence of their persecution of Senju. Of course, the fact that it was so smooth was due to the fact that most of the Senju people were upright and fearless. As long as they say it's for Konoha, these Senju people are really willing to fight for their lives. Unfortunately, these things cannot be discussed openly. Therefore, Tsunade has complicated feelings towards the third generation, and she completely hates and even hates Danzo. Tsunade felt upset when he thought about the fact that he had given at least tens of billions of dollars to third generation and Danzo in the past. Conscience is condemned. She seemed to see the souls of the Senju who were killed questioning her why she used the Senju's assets to support the enemy. Damn it! Damn it! Tsunade clenched her fists and gritted her teeth, I didn't expect it to be like this. At this moment, she hated herself. From today on, I will stop gambling. Tsunade said hatefully. Are you sure? When Tianyi heard this, he was slightly stunned and said in disbelief. What do you mean, kid? Don't you trust me, your teacher? Tsunade glared at Tenuki unhappily, but rolled her eyes and added, but I just stopped gambling with money from home, I quit gambling at the casino owned by the old man and Danzo, it does not include the money I earned myself in the casinos that were not opened by them. Tianyi understood what he said, and then said speechlessly, "You might as well continue gambling in the village. At least, most of this money will eventually be spent in the village and can promote the development of the village economy. Those casinos out there are either owned by wealthy families or nobles, and they're not much different from this one." He knew that getting Tsunade to quit gambling completely would be harder than climbing to the sky. "If I could really quit, I would have done it long ago." "Well, it's still different. At least I feel a lot better." He. Tsunade argued awkwardly. "It's up to you. I won't lend you money anyway." Tianyi shrugged helplessly and strangled the road directly. "You kid." Tsunade raised her eyebrows and was about to say something. But at this time, Tianyi spoke again, "I have read a lot of medical books recently, and I have almost learned all the medical ninjutsu. I have some new ideas to make money. If this research is successful, it will definitely make more money than a restaurant. Teacher, do you want to participate?" Tsunade was stunned when she heard this, and asked in surprise, "Really? It's related to medical skills, what is it, tell me?" Tianyi did not hesitate and immediately told Tsunade about his ideas for healing potions, bodybuilding potions, nutritional potions, and medical talismans, as well as some rough research he had already done. "Hey!" Tsunade raised her eyebrows and looked at Tianyi in surprise, "You really learned it, and your brain works well. Did you come up with such a money-making idea? But, you invited me to invest, actually you want me to help you with research, right?" She said, "Why is this brat so kind to invite her to join his gang? The purpose of love is to make her work." But I have to say, Tsunade was really moved. If these things can really be researched out, it can be foreseen that their market prospects will be absolutely broad. As long as she can get 50% of the profits, she will never be short of money again. Hehe. I knew I couldn't hide it from you, teacher. Tianyi chuckled and said, "I really need your help in research, otherwise, it would take a long time if I were alone. The key is that my main task at this stage should be to improve my strength. I don't want to invest too much energy in the research of these medicines or even talismans. Doesn't this remind me of you, teacher? You have technical knowledge and are short of money, so it's just right, isn't it? So, what do you think? Lack of energy is indeed a reason. But the main purpose is to further bind Tsunade and even the Senju clan behind her with benefits. Even though Senju has already fallen apart and is on the decline. But the foundation of assets and reputation is basically still there. After Uzumaki Mito's death, most of the Senju's assets were divided up by the third generation. After hearing this, Tsunade looked at Tianyi with a playful expression and said, "You can ask me to agree, but I want 50% of the profits." "Impossible." Tianyi shook his head and said, "It will take a lot of effort to research these things. We can't handle everything just by the two of us. Besides, if we really figured it out, it would be basically impossible for us to monopolize the benefits, whether it's the third generation, Danzo or other great ninja clans in Konoha. There's no way they'll sit back and watch us take all the benefits. These medicines are essential for cultivation and emergency treatment. At the same time, it is crucial to improving the strength of the family and even the village. Do you think we can grasp such a crucial thing just by the two of us? Tsunade is still too naive. Then how do you divide it?" When Tsunade heard this, she felt that what Tianyi said made sense. If these medicines can really be developed, they will become strategic materials for the village and each family. The two of them alone, even with the families behind them, would not be able to swallow it all. Senju has fallen. Normally, other ninjas might respect them and give them way. But when it comes to one's own interests, no Senju is of any use. Not to mention Uchiha, who has a very bad reputation in the village and is isolated. If you dare to keep it all to yourself, you will only be targeted and suppressed even more severely. Unless, they can demonstrate their absolute strength at this time. But obviously Tianyi and the others haven't yet. If he were given 10 years, he would be confident that he could defeat Konoha. But there was no way he could keep this thing secret for 10 years. That's what I think. Tianyi thought for a moment and said, "First, we set up a pharmaceutical research institute. The funds, land, equipment and other things needed for the research institute will be borne by us together. From now on, all the pharmaceutical technologies developed by this institute will be distributed according to how much we each contribute to the research of the corresponding projects, but the institute itself is not involved in the mass production of drugs. In addition, we will set up a company integrating pharmaceutical production and sales. In this company, you and I will jointly own 40% of the shares with our technology. When the time comes, we will distribute the profits based on the proportion of our corresponding pharmaceutical technology. From this 40%, the Senju and Uchiha behind us will each take 10%, and the remaining 40% will be bid by all the ninja clans and even individuals in the village. Of course, the shares of the families behind us will also be based on the average bid price. What do you think? He could certainly take more, but there's no need. This is the most appropriate way. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 41. Hey. Tsunade listened and pondered for a moment, finally digesting the information in Tianyi's words. Then, he looked at Tianyi with surprise and said, I really don't know what's wrong with your brain. You can actually come up with such an allocation plan. You've probably been thinking about this for a long time, right? If you divide it this way, it can indeed guarantee our interests and the interests of the families behind us, and it can also make the village and many ninja clans relatively satisfied. I agree to this matter, let's do as you say. She thought this was something that could be done. She believed that with her own abilities, she would be able to gain the upper hand in the research of this potion and get a larger share of the profits. Hehe. Haha. It's settled then. Let's discuss the details. Tien was overjoyed when he saw Tsunade agreed, and immediately pulled Tsunade aside to start detailed discussions and planning. Soon, the structure of the Pharmaceutical Research Institute and the Pharmaceutical Production and Sales Company took shape quickly during the two people's discussion. It took more than an hour. The two of them finally finalized the plan. Well, finally it's done. This thing is quite troublesome. Tsunade stretched and looked at Tianyi with his eyes. Now there is only one problem, that is, I have no money. What do you think I should do? The investment in the research institute is not small. If you don't have tens of millions, it is simply not enough. The main reason is that those scientific research instruments and equipment are too expensive. Tianyi rolled his eyes when he heard this and said, Don't count on me. I'll probably have to borrow from my parents myself. The restaurant's revenue this month is only about 1 million, and it also has to support my daily training and living expenses. This is serious business, not something you've used to gamble with like you did in the past. You can always borrow it from Master Mito. As long as you explain the situation to her, she will definitely agree. After all, this is also a matter of adding high-income industries to the Senju clan, isn't it? Just because Tsunade is short of money doesn't mean the Senju clan is short of money. You have to know that Senju and Uchiha worked together to build the village. The Senju own a large number of shops, land deeds, and the like in Konoha. When it comes to the richest people in Konoha, the Senju clan is still the richest clan to date. It has too many fixed assets. In fact, there are many Uchiha people in this regard. Otherwise, most of the Uchiha ninjas don't go on missions, so where would I get the income from the security department to support my family? Relying on the small salary that the village allocates to the security department every year? What are you thinking about? Hey? That's right. Tsunade immediately realized what was going on and nodded, but she said with some embarrassment, I'm afraid my grandma won't believe it. How about this? Tianyi, you will come with me to meet my grandma with this plan, and you will prove it to her for me. Is that okay? She thought she was so smart and it was a good idea. Of course you can. Tianyi was speechless after hearing this and said, but, teacher, has your credibility in front of your grandmother dropped to this level? He guessed that Uzumaki Mito was already scared of losing to Tsunade. It's also pitiful. Hey. Tsunade listened and smiled awkwardly, no more talking. Let's go. Let's go and get this done now. I'm full of energy now. With that, Tsunade stood up and pulled Tenuki out of the office. No. Don't you have to treat patients this morning, teacher? Tianyi complained. Really? Otherwise, why do you think no one came to disturb us when we were discussing for so long? Oh right. Here's the plan. As he said that, Tsunade turned back and took the plan that they had made during the previous discussion. He took Tianyi with him and soon left Konoha Hospital and walked towards the Senju clan's territory. Come to think of it, you mentioned a healing charm before, right? It seems that this thing requires the Grandmaster sealing technique to be studied further, right? On the way, Tsunade suddenly remembered something and couldn't help asking. When Tianyi heard her bring it up on her own initiative, he was immediately delighted. In fact, he still didn't know how to bring up this matter again in a reasonable way. This is related to whether he can learn some advanced sealing techniques from Uzumaki Mito through Tsunade. Good. Although he was very excited in his heart, Tianyi nodded affirmatively on the surface. I define the medical talisman as a life-saving first aid on the battlefield. After all, we have very few medical ninjas right now, and even fewer excellent ones. It is simply unrealistic to equip every mission team, even more, because most medical ninjas have little combat capability and are not suitable for being incorporated into combat teams. This means that if a member of the combat team is seriously injured, he or she may not be able to receive timely treatment and may lose his or her life. I thought, if we could create a scroll that can seal medical ninjutsu such as healing jutsu and healing techniques into it, and supply it to ninjas who go out on dangerous missions, when they are seriously injured and need treatment, we can directly activate this medical ninjutsu seal scroll to cover the wound and treat it. Wouldn't it be possible to save the lives of many companions? Teacher, what do you think? Tsunade's eyes lit up when she heard this. That's indeed a good idea. But then, Tsunade frowned again, but the requirements for the sealing technique are not low. There has never been a similar sealing technique in the past. I guess we need to start research from scratch. Also, how to ensure that the medical ninjutsu is sealed in and still effective when it is released is not easy, especially since there were no medical ninjas operating this operation. There are too many problems. This is much more difficult than researching healing potions, nutritional potions, etc. Also, even if the above problems are solved, how are you going to mass produce this kind of medical scroll? Let's not talk about ordinary healing techniques. Those advanced medical ninjutsu, such as healing jutsu, fine thread drawing technique, and so on, are only mastered by very few people. It's impossible to let these people do nothing and just fill these scrolls with corresponding medical ninjutsu on weekdays, right? That's not realistic and it won't work. Human chakra is extremely limited. Even if it is replenished, a person can only replenish a few of these advanced medical ninjutsu every day. There were so many difficulties and problems that even Tsunade felt it was too difficult. At the same time, I also find it ridiculous. This is actually a great idea. If the above problems can be solved, as Tianyi said, it will greatly increase the life-saving ability of konoha shinobi. If used properly, each medical scroll is equivalent to an extra life. It's really difficult and there are a lot of questions. But you know research, don't you? Tianyi nodded helplessly. In fact, I have been studying this for a while. For this purpose, I have learned all the sealing techniques in my clan and read all the relevant sealing techniques books. Unfortunately, Uchiha possesses too few tomes on sealing techniques. There are only a few low-level sealing techniques, which have been accumulated over the past decade. These alone cannot solve the many problems I encounter. Teacher, do you know the sealing technique? Can you teach me? P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 42. Tsunade listened, looked at Tianyi with some surprise and said, sealing technique? I do know some. If you want to learn, I can teach you later, but, you said that you Uchiha don't have any sealing techniques books? If you do, they are only accumulated in the past 10 years? This shouldn't be possible. Senju and Uchiha are both ninja clans with a history of more than 1,000 years. How could they only have this much experience? Although Uchiha is not very good at sealing techniques, this is only relative. It's true. I asked my father. Tianyi shook his head and said, my father told me that when Uchiha Madara left Konoha, his tribe members were unwilling to follow him. He felt that they had betrayed him, so he scrolled up most of the precious books in the tribe. This is why a large number of classics in the clan are missing. Even, not just sealing techniques, many advanced ninjutsu and sword techniques are missing from ancient books. Speaking of this, Tianyi felt quite gritted teeth. Tsunade smiled and suddenly realized something, so that's how it is. There is such a secret? This is not surprising. This Uchiha Madara is also a ruthless person. Tianyi shrugged depressedly, really? Haha. Don't be depressed. Tsunade saw him like this and smiled as she rubbed Tenika's head, messing up his hair. Under Tianyi's gloomy gaze, he said in a grand manner, since you are my disciple, I will teach you the sealing technique. If it doesn't work, I can ask my grandma to teach you. Since you have learned the sealing technique, you should know that the most powerful sealing technique in the ninja world is actually the Uzumaki clan that my grandmother originally belonged to. I would like to. Tianyi's eyes lit up when he heard this, but he was a little embarrassed and said, but, isn't this a little inappropriate? Nothing inappropriate. Tsunade waved her hand nonchalantly and said, "You are my disciple, it is appropriate for you not to do what I say, okay? We're here. Follow me in." At this time, they had arrived at the gate of a large courtyard in the Senju tribe's territory. Tsunade took Tianyi and pushed open the gate and walked in. As a result, Uzumaki Mito was seen sitting in a pavilion in the yard with a little girl who also had red hair next to her. "This is Uzumaki Kushina? I didn't expect she'd come to Konoha by now. Looks like we'll be able to see her in school soon." Tianyi guessed the identity of the little red-haired girl at once, thinking to himself, "Grandma Kushina, I'm back." Seeing the two, Tsunade greeted them with a smile, and brought Tenaki forward, introducing him to the two. "This is my apprentice, Uchiha Tenaki, the one I told you about." Then, Tsunade introduced Tenaki. "Tenaki, this is my grandmother Uzumaki Mito, and this is Uzumaki Kushina. Hello, Master Mito, and meet this little sister." Tianyi quickly bowed slightly to Uzumaki Mito, and nodded to Kushina who was looking at him curiously, and greeted him. "You are Tenaki. No need to be polite. You are Tsunade's apprentice, so just call me Grandma Mito from now on." Uzumaki Mito looked at Tianyi, sensed it and checked it, then gave Tianyi a kind smile and said. She did not sense any malice from Tianyi, only respect and kindness. At the same time, she also sensed that, at such a young age, Tianyi not only possessed a Chunin level chakra, but his vitality was also far beyond that of his peers. If she hadn't known that he was an Uchiha, she would have almost doubted whether Tenaki had Senju blood. Additionally, Tianyi's mental strength is extremely strong, and is estimated to be comparable to that of an ordinary kage level. The key point is that Uzumaki Mito did not sense the existence of pupil power from his eyes. That is to say, Tianyi has not yet opened the Sharingan. This is not easy. He is indeed a super genius. No wonder Monkey and Tsuna are so satisfied. Uzumaki Mito sighed in his heart. Yes. Grandma Mito. Tianyi followed suit and quickly changed his words in a sweet voice. Given Mito Uzumaki's status and position, it wouldn't be a loss to call her grandma. He was also hoping to learn the sealing technique from Uzumaki Mito. Isn't this necessary to establish a good relationship? Hello. You can call me Kushina. At this time, Kushina also greeted Tianyi with some pride, and couldn't help but steal a glance at Tianyi from time to time. I exclaimed in my heart, so handsome. Oh, obviously, she is obsessed with looks. Seeing this, Tianyi nodded again in response. Xiao Gang, why did you come back at this time today? And you brought Xiao Tianyi with you, is there something wrong? At this time, Uzumaki Mito glanced at the stack of papers in Tsunade's hand and asked with a smile. Yes. Tianyi has a plan for a research institute and company. I think it's great. It can make a lot of money, improve the village's strength and foundation, and be very helpful to the family, so, I would like to ask you to give me some advice. As he said that, Tsunade handed over the plan in his hand. Oh? Let me see. Uzumaki Mito was a little surprised. He immediately took the plan from Tsunade and read it carefully. Kushina on the side glanced curiously, then looked at Tianyi opposite, and became even more curious about Tianyi. This handsome boy who is about the same age as him is actually able to make research institute plans with Sister Tsunade. Is he so useful? Curious. More than 10 minutes later, Uzumaki Mito read the entire plan carefully, then looked up at Tsunade and Tenaki and said, Tsuna, you said that this plan was proposed by Tenaki. Yes. Tsunade nodded affirmatively, what do you think? Very good. Uzumaki Mito smiled and nodded, looking at Tianyi with admiration. I have always heard Xiao Gang and some people say that you are a genius, but I still don't have a specific concept, but after reading this plan, I finally have some idea. You're a good kid. If the potion in this proposal can really be successfully developed, it will be of great benefit to you and Tsunade, to the Senju and Uchiha, and even to Konoha. However, drug research is not that simple. Are you sure you can do it? Each of these medicines is not simple. This is true even for nutritional potions. Nature. Tianyi nodded affirmatively, I have actually had a framework for these listed potions during this period of time. If I have the help of a teacher, I am confident that I can develop the first mass-produced medicine within half a year. That's actually a bit conservative. If he was willing to use up his wishes to temporarily enhance his understanding and achieve enlightenment, it would only be faster. But Tianyi will not increase this time too quickly. He still needs more time to accumulate and become stronger. Speaking of which, since he became Tsunade's apprentice, his luck value has increased a lot, and now it has reached, talent, make a wish, LV1, 98/100, one small wish per day, you are only one step away from upgrading your wishing talent. After upgrading, you can accumulate 2 wishes every day. This can greatly accelerate the improvement of his various qualifications and strengths. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 43. Oh? It seems like you are really confident and prepared. Uzumaki Mito listened and nodded appreciatively, very good. Then, she looked at Tsunade and said, you came to me probably for funding, right? I agreed, how much money do you need? As long as Tsunade doesn't use it for gambling but is doing real work, Uzumaki Mito is still willing to provide funds. Anyway, in a few years, the assets of the Senju clan will be handed over to the siblings Tsunade and Naoki. Tsunade was able to walk on the right path under the guidance of his own disciples, but it was too late for Uzumaki Mito Jaoksen. Therefore, at this moment, she admired and loved Tianyi more and more. This is a good kid. Tsunade looked at Tianyi, raised a finger and said, let's start with 10 million. I'm not sure if we'll need more later. Hehe. Tsunade felt a little embarrassed about asking for so much money. Seeing her like this, Uzumaki Mito shook his head in amusement, then let's say 10 million. Are you embarrassed? You have lost 100 times more money than this in the past few years and you are not embarrassed, this is a bit strange today. Haha. Tsunade blushed when she heard this, walked over and grabbed one of Uzumaki Mito's hands, shook her head, and said coquettishly, oh, Grandma. I was wrong about the past, can you please stop talking about it? My apprentice is still here. This is not a glorious thing. Hehe. Uzumaki Mito immediately said, okay, okay. I'll give you some face today. I hope you can work hard with Xiao Tianyi this time and try to achieve some results as soon as possible. After Grandma passes away, I can feel more at ease. She is really worried about Tsunade and Naoki now. Now we have to add Kushina. Grandma, you are saying something unlucky again. I'm sure you will live a long life. Tsunade heard this but retorted. She actually knew in her heart that Kushina's arrival meant that her grandmother's time was running out. But she was unwilling to accept this. Logically speaking, as a member of the Uzumaki clan, Grandma should live much longer than ordinary people. Now Grandma is only 61 years old, so she is far from reaching her life limit, it all comes down to her being a Jinkraki, and in order to suppress the 9 tails in her body, she is constantly losing additional vitality. Is it possible to develop a medicine or medical ninjutsu to replenish Grandma's lost vitality and extend her life? Tsunade was unwilling to give in, and a light bulb went off in her head, and she couldn't help but think. But it is not convenient to tell my grandmother my thoughts now. She planned to ask Tianyi later to see if he had any good ideas about this. After all, Tianyi is so smart. Hehe. Uzumaki Mito just smiled after hearing this and didn't say anything more on this topic. She knew that Tsunade must have known this. Immediately, she turned to look at Tianyi and said, little Tianyi, I heard that you are also enrolled this year. In a few days, Kushina will also go to school. She will definitely be in the same class as you. When the time comes, please help take care of her and don't let her get bullied, okay? Transfer students, especially those from outside, are always easily excluded. When Uzumaki Mito sent Kushina to school, he wanted her to make some friends of her age in the village. In this way, he gradually integrated into Konoha and truly became a member of Konoha. At the same time, it is also for Kushina to find her own love to fill the spiritual void caused by the sealing of 9 tails in the future. Naturally, he didn't want her to be bullied for other reasons, but instead hate Konoha and not be able to make friends or something like that. That's no problem. Tianyi listened and nodded affirmatively. Are you sure? Before Uzumaki Mito could speak, Tsunade on the side crossed her arms and looked at Tianyi with a playful expression, have you forgotten that you basically use Shadow Clone to go to school instead of you now? Hey! Uzumaki Mito and even Kushina were stunned when they heard this, is this possible? No way! Tianyi spread his hands helplessly and said, I learn things very quickly in school, and I have almost finished learning them. Stay there any longer and it will be a waste of time, plus, I still have to learn medical skills from my teacher, so this is the only way. But this doesn't affect me from taking care of Kushina in class. Even if it's shadow clone, I'm invincible among the students in the school. Just that confident. In that case, thank you very much. Kushina, thanks Yao Tianyi quickly. Uzumaki Mito nodded in understanding and patted Kushina's hand. Thank you, brother Tianyi. Kushina quickly stood up and thanked Tianyi. At the same time, she looked at Tianyi with admiration. I think it's so cool that Tianyi goes to school using shadow clone. Could she also learn this trick? Let's go to school first. If school is boring, that's fine. Kushina thought anxiously. You are welcome. Tianyi smiled and waved his hand. That's right. At this time, Tsunade pointed at Tianyi again and said to Uzumaki Mito, Grandma. This kid also wants to create a medical talisman. Then, Tsunade roughly described Tenuka's idea about the medical talisman to Uzumaki Mito. Then, he said, because many of the Uchiha clan's books were taken away by Uchiha Madara, he couldn't learn any sealing techniques. Although I have mastered some sealing techniques, I don't think they are enough. I see you are teaching Kushina the sealing technique. Can you please teach this kid the sealing technique as well? If this medical talisman can really work, it will be of great help to Konoha and can greatly reduce casualties. She estimated that with Tianyi's learning ability, the little knowledge of sealing techniques in her mind would be drained away by Tianyi in less than 2 months. Rather than embarrassing himself in front of Tianyi later, it would be better to hand this matter over to Uzumaki Mito as soon as possible. Teaching 1 is teaching, teaching 2 is also teaching. Medical talisman? You really have some creative ideas, kid. Uzumaki Mito was also a little surprised when he heard this and looked at Tianyi and said, if this medical talisman can really be researched, it will be of great significance to Konoha. Since you want to learn the sealing technique, then starting from tomorrow, you should come to my place every afternoon to learn the sealing technique with Kushina. Also, I'll give you some basic sealing books later. You can take them back and read them. But are you sure you can still handle it? I heard that not only are you learning medicine from Tsunade, but you're also bringing a few classmates with you for training. Even, you in front of me are just a shadow clone, right? When did the children of Konoha become so rebellious? Even when she thought about Tianyi's multi-line operations, she felt a little scalp tingling. After hearing this, Kushina, who was standing by, looked at Tianyi with even more surprise and admiration. Hey. It's okay. It's okay. Tianyi listened, smiled, and touched the back of his head and said, my chakra and mental strength have increased a lot during this period, my understanding of shadow clone technique has also increased a lot. Although it is a bit stressful to split off another shadow clone to learn the sealing technique, I can still stick to it. It will not affect my body. Please rest assured. P.S. New book uploaded, please collect, give flowers and comment. Chapter 44. Since you already know what's going on, I won't say anything more. You are still young, so don't push yourself too hard. Relaxing in moderation is the best option. Uzumaki Mito listened, nodded in understanding, couldn't help but give a reminder, and didn't say anything else. She could see that Tianyi seemed to have a sense of urgency in his heart, forcing himself to grow up quickly and become stronger. It was as if some fatal danger was chasing him from behind. Thinking about the attitude of third generation and Danzo towards Uchiha, and the current situation of Senju, Uzumaki Mito had an idea in his mind. Didn't she know that the third generation, in pursuit of power, had murdered a large number of the Senju's elite young men? Of course it is very clear. But by then, things had already been decided, and for the sake of Konoha, Tsunade, and Naoki, she could only endure it. After all, she doesn't have much time left, and Konoha can't afford any major turmoil. But if she had a choice, she would definitely not be willing to endure it and would definitely want to retaliate. Take good care of third generation and Danzo and revive Senju. But she didn't have time. All we can do is to arrange the future paths for Tsunade, Naoki, and Kushina as best as possible. Okay. I've got that in mind. Thank you for your concern. Tianyi felt Uzumaki Mito's care from the bottom of his heart, and nodded in thanks with some emotion. This is a good elder. After that, they chatted for a while, and then Tsunade took Tianyi away again. After returning to the hospital office, Tsunade did not deal with the documents, but pulled Tianyi to sit on the sofa, looked at Tianyi seriously and asked, Tianyi, with your current medical skills, can you tell the physical condition of my grandma? Tianyi listened and looked at Tsunade in surprise. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, "It seems full of vitality and strong vitality, but in fact, its vitality is seriously overdrawn and filled with death, like a castle in the air. If there is no way to make up for the overdrawn vitality, I'm afraid Grandma Mito won't have much time left, probably only a few years. This is what I really think. His current medical skills may not be as good as Tsunade's, but they are not far behind. Don't forget, he also mastered extremely advanced Chinese and Western medical skills in his previous life. Recently, due to his intensive study of the medical skills and human body knowledge in the ninja world, he has already transferred some of his medical skills from his previous life, allowing his medical skills to continue to improve rapidly. Sure enough, you can already see it." Tsunade's face darkened slightly after hearing this, and she asked with a heavy face, "You are smart and flexible, since you can come up with healing potions, nutritional potions, mental recovery potions, and research a prototype. You even have an idea of how to make bloodline purification potions. What do you think of the potion that replenishes vitality?" Uzumaki Mito was her last remaining close relative, and she was far from ready to lose her. In addition, the affairs of the Senju clan are still being managed by Uzumaki Mito. If she just left like this, Tsunade didn't know how to deal with the situation that followed. So, she wanted to extend Uzumaki Mito's life. "It doesn't have to be too much, just prolong my grandmother's life by 10 years, plus the 2 or 3 years she originally had, that would be 12 or 13 years. By then, I must have been more mature. In addition, considering Tianyi's level of evil, this kid's strength at that time might have surpassed hers, and even surpassed the 3rd generation at that time, making him invincible in Konoha. By then, even if her grandmother really passed away, she believed that with Tianyi's help and her own greater maturity, she would definitely be able to handle the situation at that time, preserve the assets of the Senju clan, and even allow the Senju to rise again. By then, Nawaki should have grown up, and the burden of the family would naturally be borne by Nawaki. That is the perfect solution. This really exists." Tianyi raised his eyebrows slightly after hearing this and said, "In fact, the problem of vitality deficiency is not only experienced by Grandma Mito, but also by my parents and even most adult ninjas in the ninja world, to a greater or lesser extent. Of course, unlike Grandma Mito, the other ninjas were caused by overpressing and extracting chakra. Therefore, when I was researching and thinking about healing potions some time ago, I naturally also considered potions that replenish vitality. But at that time, due to insufficient knowledge and medical experience, and the difficulty of this research, I did not include it in the current research plan. However, since you want to replenish Mito's vitality and prolong her life, we can put this back in the first order of research. In the next period of time, I will devote some time and energy to studying this. I believe that with your help, we will be able to achieve results within 1 or 2 years. If it really doesn't work, the worst that can happen is that I can cheat myself, make a wish to increase my understanding and achieve enlightenment, and speed up this research. After all things considered, it was much better for Uzumaki Mito to be alive than dead. As long as she is still alive, the 3rd generation won't dare to act too recklessly. Uzumaki Mito is like a stabilizing force. Even though he is old, he can still suppress some villains to a certain extent. With Uzumaki Mito protecting him, Tianyi's own safety will be guaranteed, as will his subsequent research results and industries. As long as Tsunade or Nawaki and the Senju clan are involved, the 3rd generation won't dare to go too far. There are so many benefits. Of course, this was also because Uzumaki Mito showed kindness to him and was willing to teach him the sealing technique, and did not reject or be hostile to him because of his Uchiha origin. Otherwise, it's another idea. People, you have to pay for your choices. This time, Uzumaki Mito and Tsunade were undoubtedly the right buys. In addition, whether it is traditional Chinese martial arts or Chakra Jotyen Banyan tree method, if practiced to a certain level, it can prolong a person's lifespan, not to mention restore vitality and restore the original lifespan. However, now is not the time to teach these 2 techniques to Tsunade and Uzumaki Mito. We need to spend more time together to deepen our feelings and understanding. Really? Tsunade's eyes lit up when she heard this, and she leaned over and grabbed Tianyi's shoulders with an excited look on her face and asked. "Yet. I have confidence." Tianyi nodded affirmatively. "Good." Tsunade was so overjoyed that she patted Tianyi's shoulder, making Tianyi feel half of his shoulder numb and his face twisted. "Ah. Sorry. Sorry." Seeing this, Tsunade immediately reached out and gently touched Tianyi's numb shoulder, then withdrew her hand and said embarrassedly, I was excited for a moment and used too much force. Since you are confident, when can we start the research? Tianyi rolled his eyes helplessly and said, we have to get the funds in place to build the research institute and purchase the necessary research equipment and instruments before we can start, right? Besides, we can't study this all day long. We also need to study other medicines, otherwise, after deducting the cost of purchasing instruments and equipment and setting up a research institute, the 20 million yuan will not be enough to support our research for long. The money-making potion must be made as soon as possible. Also, my knowledge and medical skills are not enough. I need to continue learning every day. He didn't want to be dragged by Tsunade to study life potions every day because of this. The sample is finally inverted. P.S. It will be officially launched after 12 o'clock today, please be the first to order. Please make your own order. Chapter 45. That's right. I was too impatient. After hearing this, Tsunade calmed down a little and said, then let me take care of the construction of the research institute and the purchase of equipment. I hope the funds on your side will be in place as soon as possible. If you don't mind, the research institute can be located in the Senju tribe's territory. At this point, she thought of something, looked at Tianyi and explained, don't get me wrong, I don't have any other ideas, I just think this can save a lot of money. There are many empty houses in my Senju tribe's land, and this land can be used for free. I can even give you the title deed to the institute. In addition, if our research yields any results, it will inevitably be coveted and watched by the old man, Danzo, and even many others. Only if we put it in the Senju tribe's territory and under Grandma's nose, they won't dare to take action against the research institute. After all, not even the third generation and Danzo dared to face the thunderous wrath of Uzumaki Mito. Someone will die. Of course, if you have confidence in Uchiha, you can also set up the research institute in the Uchiha clan territory. Tsunade added. She just wanted to reduce some troubles at the institute. Let her and Tianyi focus on their research. Forget about this. Tianyi heard this and waved his hand to reject it, saying, just place them in the Senju tribe's land. Try to get as close to Grandma Mito's yard as possible. As for resettlement in Uchiha tribe land. To be honest, there are many factions in the clan now, and there are many people who have been bribed by the third generation or even Danzo. Until my father completes the internal reform and cleansing of the Uchiha and unifies the voice of the tribe, I dare not place the research institute in the Uchiha land. Oh. Tsunade was slightly surprised when she heard this and said, I didn't expect you to have so little confidence in Uchiha's internal affairs. Tianyi couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard this and said, it's strange that you have confidence. The internal situation is in chaos. There are all kinds of people. 2. Tsunade nodded in understanding. But I didn't expect you guys were still planning internal reforms? It seems like this is also your handiwork, right? I really can't underestimate this disciple of mine. Tianyi nodded affirmatively, almost. My father also supports me. Let's not talk about this anymore. You should quickly sort out the site selection, construction, and equipment purchase for the research institute. I will bring you my 10 million tomorrow. Remember, don't gamble with it. Finally, Tianyi couldn't help but give a reminder. Tsunade glared at him and asked, am I so untrustworthy? Tianyi spread his hands helplessly, I can't help it, it's just that you have too many criminal records in the past, teacher. Everything else is very considered, but once money is involved, it may not be the same. When it comes to money, how can you easily believe what a gambler says? Don't worry. Tsunade was helpless to hear this and promised, this concerns my grandmother's life and my future plans to make money, I won't do anything rash. That's fine. Tian nodded and said nothing more. At dusk that day, the shadow clone was automatically removed. Tianyi Ben, who had just finished training and returned home, paused for a moment before receiving the message from shadow clone. He quickly closed his eyes and digested it. After a while, he opened his eyes, rubbed his brows, and thought to himself, I didn't expect these things to go so smoothly, we've already settled the matter with the institute and the teacher, so money shouldn't be a big problem. But extending Uzumaki Mito's life? That wouldn't be bad. It would buy me more time to develop. Immediately, Tianyi walked into the living room and saw his father and elder brother there. My stupid Unii-san. You're back? How was the mission? Tianyi walked up with a smile, sat down opposite the two of them and teased. Fugaku couldn't help but frown when he heard what Tianyi said, and said angrily, "You are the stupid Oudoudu. Is it so difficult to call me big brother normally?" If he could beat Tianyi, he would have wanted to beat this kid up. He regretted why he didn't teach this brat a lesson before Tianyi started practicing. After this brat started practicing, within a month he found that he was no match for Tianyi. It's totally unreasonable. Can a genius do whatever he wants? Whispering sound. Tianyi curled his lips after hearing this and ignored Hogyoku. Instead, he looked at Nobuhiko and told him roughly what happened at the research institute. Then he said, "I don't have enough money. Dad, please support me with 10 million first. I will pay you back when I have money in the future." Ha! Before Nobuhiko could say anything, Hogyoku could no longer sit still and could not help but taunt him, 10 million? Do you want to listen to what you are saying? Dad would definitely not agree. I agree. Before Hogyoku could finish, Nobuhiko interrupted him and said directly to Tianyi, "Don't worry about paying it back. Your father believes in you. If it's not enough, you can tell me. I can still come up with tens of millions." Hogyoku. No. Why? Dad, you can't spoil him like this. Hogyoku advised his father in confusion. This is 10 million, not 1,000 taels. All right. Hogyoku. Seeing this, Nobuhiko frowned and glared at Hogyoku and said, "Tenaki is doing serious work. As his brother, you should support him more instead of making trouble for him. Do you understand?" "Hey, thanks, Dad." Tianyi thanked Nobuhiko, then winked at Hogyoku with a playful look on his face. Fyogaku's forehead was bulging with veins after seeing this, so he simply decided not to mention it. He could see that ever since his younger brother became wise, his status in the family had been declining sharply, while his younger brother's status had been rising sharply. So frustrating. Nobuhiko did not delay and immediately got up and went to the secret vault in his home to find 10 million taels, sealed them in a space seal scroll, handed it to Tianyi, and asked him to keep it. "Thanks, Dad." Tianyi accepted it happily. In a blink of an eye, it was already a week later. This week, Tianyi had one more thing to do every day, which was to send one more shadow clone to Uzumaki Mito to learn the sealing technique from her. With his terrifying comprehension and the foundation of sealing techniques he had accumulated before, he was able to instantly learn any of the low and medium level sealing techniques taught by Uzumaki Mito, and his proficiency also improved rapidly. However, within a week, he had drained all the knowledge of low-level sealing techniques from Uzumaki Mito. He even learned a lot of intermediate sealing techniques. "You are so smart. It seems I underestimated you before. According to your current progress, I estimate that in 2 or 3 months, I will have nothing left to teach you about sealing techniques." Uzumaki Mito couldn't help but exclaim in amazement when he saw Tianyi easily learn another intermediate sealing technique. "P.S. This book will be on the shelves after 12 o'clock today. Please be the first to place an order or place your own order." Chapter 46. Tsunade has a great apprentice. Uzumaki Mito felt that the monkey had finally done a good thing. Although, she guessed that monkey had another purpose in asking Tsunade to accept Tianyi as his apprentice, and it was still for himself. But there is a reason for making a mistake. With Tianyi's understanding and talent, her future achievements may surpass Tobirama or even her husband Hashirama. In Uzumaki Mito's opinion, no matter what plans the monkey has for Tianyi, it will ultimately be difficult to succeed. Especially with her presence. As long as Tsunade and Tianyi maintain a good master-disciple relationship and deepen their feelings, then when she dies and Tenaki grows up, there will be no need to worry about the safety of Tsunade and Noeki. Therefore, Uzumaki Mito plans to protect Tianyi and block the plans of the third generation and Danzo for him, so as to buy the child a few more years. Judging from Tianyi's current growth rate and talent, in 3 to 5 years, he will probably be fearless of the third generation and Danzo's schemes. In less than 10 years, Konoha will be a completely different scene. She is looking forward to such a future. God still favors Uchiha, and me, Senju. Uzumaki Mito thought leisurely in his heart. Hehe. No way. I still have a lot to learn from you. After hearing this, Tianyi touched the back of his head and said modestly. Uzumaki Mito has more than just sealing techniques. The inheritance of the Senju clan is in her hands. If he could learn more, Tianyi wouldn't mind learning more. For example, Flying Thunder God technique is very suitable for him. His super cage level other dimensional qualifications have been idle and have not been put to use. What a waste. Brother Tianyi, just forget it. Kushina on the side couldn't stand it anymore and said angrily, I'm almost killed by you. Before you came, Grandma kept praising me for being a genius in sealing techniques, but since you came, Grandma has never said that again. Compared to you, any genius becomes a mediocre one, humph. The huge gap in contrast is really discouraging. Hey. Sorry. Tianyi heard this and smiled embarrassedly. How should he respond to this? It's not his fault that he is talented. Hee. Uzumaki Mito, who was standing by, saw Kushina's cheeks puffed up like a tomato, and immediately reached out to touch Kushina's head and comforted her. Grandma didn't lie. You really are a rare genius in the Uzumaki clan, and your talent is no worse than Grandma's. As for Tianyi, he was an accident, a monster, don't compare yourself to him. This is too depressing. People like him are extremely rare in history. People. The most important thing is to know yourself, determine your position, and constantly surpass yourself. Don't always compare yourself with those monsters. Otherwise, you will only hurt yourself and it will not do any good. Just like Hashirama and Uchiha Madara back then. Who among the people of that era would not feel that these two were towering figures and unrivaled? Like this. Uzumaki Kushina was slightly startled after hearing this, and nodded as if she understood. Okay. That's all we'll learn today. Tomorrow Kushina you will be going to the ninja school. At this point, Uzumaki Mito looked at Tianyi and said, I'll ask Tianyi to take good care of Kushina when the time comes. Okay. Tianyi nodded quickly and agreed, I will use my real body to go to school tomorrow to make sure no one bullies Kushina. That's a good feeling. Uzumaki Mito's eyes lit up after hearing this, and he nodded with satisfaction, then I'll trouble you. No trouble. No trouble. It's just a small matter. Tianyi smiled and waved his hand. After that, the shadow clone was removed. This is such a cunning way of learning. He's so smart, but he's still working so hard. What's the reason? Seeing this, Kushina couldn't help but complain. Uzumaki Mito smiled kindly after hearing this, reached out and touched Kushina's head and said, he just took on a lot of responsibilities on his own initiative. Tianyi is a good kid. You should learn from him and get along with him better in the future. Do you understand? That's good for Kushina. She actually considered letting Tianyi become Kushina's future partner, the person who would fill the void in Kushina's heart. Whether it is talent, character, or the Sharingan that Tianyi will definitely awaken in the future, they are all very suitable for Kushina. Of course, after spending a week together, she could see that the two children had unknowingly developed a fondness for each other. Of course, this is also because she not only did not stop it, but also secretly guided and fanned the flames. Rather than waiting until I die and the third generation arranges people to approach and control Kushina, it would be better for me to do it myself. Yes. I will. Grandma. Uzumaki Kushina had no idea that Uzumaki Mito had thought so far ahead, and she just nodded obediently. That's right. Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind and she said, Grandma, can I also learn the shadow clone technique? This way, if I feel like I can't learn anything in school, I can learn from Tianyi and his friends and use shadow clone to go to school on my behalf. That's perfect. It will also be convenient for me to continue learning the sealing technique from you, right? Of course, she didn't say anything else. That is, she wants to keep up with Tianyi's pace and practice with Tianyi himself. For some reason, she didn't want to fall too far behind Tianyi and hoped to catch up with him. Oh. Uzumaki Mito raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He could tell what Kushina was thinking at a glance, and nodded with a smile, sure. If you want to learn, I'll teach you right away. Come to think of it, our Uzumaki clan is actually very suitable for learning shadow clone technique or even multiple shadow clone technique. Immediately, Uzumaki Mito began to teach Kushina shadow clone technique and multiple shadow clone technique. As expected, Kushina learned these two ninjutsu easily. In fact, Kushina feels that the multiple shadow clone technique is simpler. How amazing! This ninjutsu! Now, I can also learn it and catch up with brother Tianyi as soon as possible. He. Kushina said happily as he created dozens of shadow clones at once. Boom! But the next moment, she was hit on the head by Uzumaki Mito, who scolded her, I didn't teach you this to let you do whatever you want. What did I warn you about when I was teaching you just now? These two ninjutsu will not only feed back shadow clones' experience information, but also fatigue, if you create too many shadow clones at once, and the creation time is too long, the fatigue and information fed back will most likely overwhelm your little brain and cause you to suddenly die. Do you understand? P.S. This book will be on the shelves after 12 o'clock today. Please be the first to place an order or place your own order. Chapter 47. DB. After hearing this, Kushina came back to his senses from his elation and fantasy, stuck out his tongue in embarrassment, and quickly removed all shadow clones. Although it was only a moment, the impact of the information was indeed a bit uncomfortable. I know I was wrong, Grandma, however, how many shadow clones should I create at once? Uzumaki Kushina apologized awkwardly and then asked. You need to test this yourself. But considering your mental strength, physical fitness, and mental fortitude, you should not take more than 5 at a time. This is the number of shadow clone that are separated over a long period of time. Anyway, you don't need so much, right? Uzumaki Mito said carefully. 5? That's enough. I've got it in mind. Kushina listened, thought about it and nodded. Okay. Grandma is going to prepare dinner. After dinner today, go to bed early. You still have to go to school tomorrow. Having said that, Uzumaki Mito stood up and walked into the house. Grandma, can you go with me tomorrow? No. If I go out, some people might be worried. I'll let Tsunade go with you. Ah. So that's it. Inside the Hokage's office, upon learning that Tianyi had recently created a shadow clone every day to learn the sealing technique from Uzumaki Mito, the third generation frowned and felt very annoyed. He took out his pipe, put a handful of tobacco in it, lit it, took 2 puffs, and sighed softly. Why would Tsunade let Uchiha Tenkka go to learn the sealing technique from Master Mito? Master Mito actually agreed. What on earth do they want to do? For the first time, third generation felt that things were beginning to get out of his control. Did I underestimate this kid before? Perhaps it was because of the lack of the follow-up influence of the power of wishes. The third generation, whose IQ had returned to a high level, now vaguely felt that something was wrong. He suddenly felt that he had never really seen through Uchiha Tenkka. Previously, the decision to hastily let Tsunade accept a disciple was too hasty. But this is the decision I made. I've completely lost my mind. Not only was I confused, Danzo was also confused at that time. After all, Uchiha Tenkka is the youngest son of Uchiha clan leader Uchiha Nobuhiko. Because he showed a certain talent, Danzo said right away that he wanted to take him into the route to control and brainwash him. This is ridiculous in itself. However, at that time, neither he nor Danzo thought there was anything wrong with it, they just went to rob people. Now thinking back, everything was wrong. Ugh, my head hurts. Thinking of this, third generation rubbed his brows with his hands, feeling very tired. However, he just felt that he and Danzo were confused at the time, and did not suspect who had done something to them and secretly influenced them. After all, this is simply impossible. If this is true, it would be terrifying. Move. At this moment, the door of his office was pushed open again. When the third generation looked up, they saw Danzo hurriedly walking in. However, this time Danzo unexpectedly closed the door, and then looked at the third generation with a gloomy face and said, Hiruzen. Master Mito is teaching that Uchiha the Tensei seal technique. You don't know about this, do you? What on earth were you thinking? How could you allow this to happen? Danzo was very annoyed because he had been repeatedly humiliated by the third generation because of Tianyi's matter. Receiving this news today made him even more furious. Calm down, Danzo. Seeing this, third generation frowned slightly. How do you ask me to calm down? Danzo didn't calm down after hearing this, but became even more angry, and his voice became louder. Hiruzen, don't you realize the seriousness of the problem? At the beginning, I told you to hand the person over to me so that I could take him into the root department to control and train him, but you just wouldn't listen. Why did you choose Tsunade to be your disciple? Isn't this good? He's directly connected to Master Mito. Even now, he is still learning the sealing technique from Master Mito with that candidate Jinchuriki. What do you want to do, Master Mito? Do you want them to develop feelings in advance? Do you want Uchiha to control Nine Tails Jinchuriki in the future? This is the fundamental reason why Danzo got angry. He absolutely could not tolerate the Uchiha controlling the Jinchuriki. If this is really the case, then Konoha will be in turmoil in the future? DAF. The third generation was also awakened by Danzo at this time. Thinking of the possibility of what Danzo said, they couldn't help but gasp. But he forgot that he still had a pipe in his mouth. I was immediately choked by the smoke. He coughed violently for a while, and then, in the face of Danzo's speechless and contemptuous expression, he said with a sullen face, I said that I felt something was wrong when I received this message before, and it was only after you reminded me that I realized it. Indeed, Master Mito is going too far. What does she want to do? No. I have to go talk to Master Mito about this. Having said that, the third generation couldn't sit still anymore and stood up and prepared to leave. But when he saw Danzo, he couldn't help but invite him, Danzo, how about joining us? It was really a person facing Uzumaki Mito, especially this time he was questioning her, he was a little scared. As his power has become more consolidated and expanded over the past few years, the influence of the Senju has become smaller and smaller, and he has become much bolder in facing Uzumaki Mito. But I'm still afraid to face the angry Uzumaki Mito. It seems like an instinct in my genes. When Danzo heard the invitation from the third generation, his expression froze, his forehead was slightly sweaty, his eyes were erratic, and he shook his head repeatedly, feeling timid, and said, forget it. You know, Master Mito doesn't like me. I'll leave this matter to you. I just have one request. We cannot let Uchiha Teniki and the Jinchuriki to be stay together any longer, and we cannot let Mito-sama continue to bring them together. The Jinchuriki must not fall into the hands of the Uchiha in the future. Otherwise, it would be unknown who will have the final say in the future of Shiyi. This risk must be nipped in the bud. Danzo didn't dare to go at all. Because he was afraid that Uzumaki Mito would use him as a scapegoat and punish him. After all, he played a crucial role in the demise of the Senju clan's elite members. He is basically taking the blame for this. What if Uzumaki Mito gets angry and settles old scores with him and kills him directly? He won't be able to escape. Haha. All right. You wait here for me, I'll be back soon. The third generation also smiled happily when they saw this. Naturally, he could see Danzo's guilt and fear, and knew why. To be honest, I didn't throw this to Danzo. Therefore, he did not take the opportunity to laugh at Danzo, but nodded and set off quickly. A few minutes later, the third generation hurried to the yard where Uzumaki Mito was. I knocked on the door and walked in at the servant's invitation, then came to the living room and met Uzumaki Mito and Uzumaki Kushina. Mito adult. Feeling the terrifying aura emanating from Uzumaki Mito, the third generation suppressed all their anger and dissatisfaction deep in their hearts, not daring to show it at all, and only bowed slightly respectfully. You're the Hokage, no need to be polite. Uzumaki Mito then completely restrained his momentum, waved his hand and asked the third generation to sit down opposite him. Then, without waiting for the third generation to speak, he pointed at Uzumaki Kushina who was standing beside him and said, You know Kushina too. I plan to send her to the ninja school tomorrow, I have informed you about this matter before. Are you okay? Yes. After hearing this, the third generation nodded and said, It's all arranged. You can let Kushina go to school anytime. At this point, third generation felt a little relieved. It seems that Master Mito is not prepared to let Kushina stay by his side to teach him forever. I'm still planning to let her learn to make more friends, so as to deepen her bond with that's great. It will make it easier for me to arrange for someone to contact her and improve her impression of me later. Third generation thought. Maybe things aren't as bad as Danzo said? Master Mito didn't have any idea of bringing Uchiha Teniki and Uzumaki Kushina together? Is this all just a coincidence? That's good. Uzumaki Mito listened, nodded with satisfaction, asked Kushina to say hello to the third generation, and let her go to the inner room first. After Kushina left, Uzumaki Mito waved his hand to cast an isolation barrier, took a sip from the teacup in front of him, looked at third generation calmly and said, You have resentment and dissatisfaction with me today, let me guess, it's because of the matter between Tian this child and Kushina. Apparently, when she heard the third generation rushing over, she anticipated the reason. This was the reason why she had deliberately revealed some of her power to intimidate the third generation. When the third generation heard this, they were slightly shocked. At this moment, he felt that Uzumaki Mito's calm gaze was so sharp that it made him feel a tingling sensation all over his body. But he still had to bite the bullet and nodded, Nothing can be hidden from you, Master Mito. I am here because of Uchiha Teniki and Kushina. Kushina is the future Nine Tails Jinchuriki, and Uchiha Tenuki is Uchiha, isn't it inappropriate for you to bring them together? As a result, Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is likely to be controlled by Uchiha in the future. You also know Uchiha's ambitions. There were acts of mutiny in previous years. If they get Nine-Tails, the consequences will be disastrous. As the Hokage, I cannot sit idly by and watch this happen, so I hope you can understand me, Master Mito. Even if there was only a slight possibility, he wanted to nip it in the bud. Buzz. The next moment, third generation felt the restrained aura of Uzumaki Mito on the opposite side surge out, covering the entire living room within the barrier. The air in the living room seemed to be distorted, and cracks began to appear on the floor. This is the result of Mito's deliberate control. The third generation felt like a lone boat in the stormy sea, about to fall. It was as if a Shinigami was whispering in my ear. His whole body was tense, and he carefully resisted the pressure, but he didn't dare to use chakra to fight against it. He felt like his life was not in his own control. So scary. Still as scary as ever. The last time we faced this kind of power was after we killed most of the Senju elite, right? Mr. Mito, how can you be so strong? No recession. The third generation thought with a trembling heart. He even had the idea of why Uzumaki Mito wasn't dead yet. But he extinguished this thought as soon as it came to his mind, and hurriedly controlled his mind to stop thinking in this direction. Because he knew very well that Uzumaki Mito could sense the good and evil in people's hearts. Any malice and negative emotion will be sensed by others. Just like what Uzumaki Mito said just now, he came here today with dissatisfaction and resentment. This is also one of the fundamental reasons why the third generation is unwilling to face Uzumaki Mito. When facing Uzumaki Mito, he always felt like he was completely seen through and had no secrets at all. This was unbearable for a person in power who was gradually consolidating the real power of Hokage. If it weren't for his lack of strength, or if it weren't for the great prestige of the Uzumaki Mito and Senju clans, touching Uzumaki Mito would inevitably lead to him being confronted by many ninja clans, which would lead to civil unrest in Konoha. As for the destruction, he probably had a falling out with Mito Uzumaki a long time ago. However, even though the third generation immediately suppressed their hatred and murderous intent towards Uzumaki Mito, they still could not escape Uzumaki Mito's perception. Boom! The next moment, an even more terrifying aura erupted from Uzumaki Mito. The golden nine-tails chakra also emerged on the body surface. The entire barrier began to crumble. If Uzumaki Mito hadn't restrained and controlled the range of his aura, the barrier would have been broken long ago. But at this moment, the sky outside the house seemed to be affected by an image, and rolling dark clouds began to appear. X. The nearby Enbu and residents all looked over in amazement. Haha! How dare you harbor hatred and murderous intent towards me, Sarutobi Hiruzen, you have become very capable. Why? Am I, an old woman, annoying to you? You wish I would die immediately. Uzumaki Mito sneered as he narrowed his eyes at the third generation. She felt that she was too kind, too concerned about the overall situation, and too tolerant. When they plotted against the Senju clan, I should have killed them and replaced them with a Hokage. In fact, she shouldn't have supported Tobirama's determination and supported Sarutobi Hiruzen to secure the position of Hokage from the very beginning. Otherwise, how could the Senju clan have fallen to this point today? The Senju are close to extinction, and she doesn't even know how to face Hashirama after she dies. Should we put the blame on Tobirama? She is the one who makes the final decision. She could have vetoed Tobirama's appointment. Unfortunately, there is no medicine for regret in the world. I'm not. I didn't. You misunderstood. The third generation heard Uzumaki Mito's questioning and felt the erosion of his stinging nine-tails chakra. They trembled all over, their mouths quivered, and they denied it 3 times in a row. At the same time, I screamed in my heart, I want to die. I want to die. 2.9 Why couldn't he hold back just now? Facing Uzumaki Mito's murderous intent, isn't this courting death? I was wrong. I was wrong. Feeling that Uzumaki Mito's momentum had not diminished at all, but had become even more terrifying, the third generation had no choice but to admit their mistakes. The next moment, Uzumaki Mito's aura began to subside, and the nine-tails chakra on his body also gradually subsided and soon disappeared. Looking at the third generation shivering on the ground, he said coldly, "Get up. You are a Hokage after all, it's not proper to lie there like this." The third generation heard this, even though he wanted to complain in his heart, "Who do you think this is because of?" But with the previous experience, he never dared to attack Uzumaki Mito again. Even the arrogance and pride brought about by the consolidation and expansion of power over the years were all wiped out by Uzumaki Mito at this moment. I didn't dare to have any dissatisfaction or small thoughts in my heart, let alone hatred or murderous intent. The regret of the third generation, why did I have to face Uzumaki Mito alone? Why not bring your own hot pot shadow Danzo? That way, all of Uzumaki Mito's anger will definitely be attracted to Danzo. At the same time, he also regretted why he came here. Isn't it possible that the future Nine Tails Jinchuriki is developing a relationship with Uchiha Tenkei? Anyway, Kushina Uzumaki will go to school next. Once there, I have plenty of ways to make her fall in love with someone else, right? He thought that Namikaze Minato was pretty good. Identity, background, talent, and personality are all suitable. This kind of person is easiest to fool and control. What? He and Uchiha Tenkei are good friends, they often practice together, and he has received a lot of favors from Uchiha Tenkei? That's not a problem. Are there not many examples of people turning against each other because of love? By then, he can completely split Namikaze Minato and Uchiha Tenkei. P.S. New book is on the shelves. Please place your first order or custom order. Chapter 48. The third generation even planned to find a way to alienate Uchiha Tenkei from the new generation of Inoshika Ch. He felt that he had been deceived by Uchiha Tianyi in the past, and thought that he could become a pawn to suppress and control Uchiha, so he did not care about these things. Now, third generation doesn't see it that way. Because of the humiliation just now, he didn't dare to hate Uzumaki Mito, and could only transfer all his hatred to Uchiha Tenkei and vent his anger on him. Therefore, the perception of Tianyi has also changed completely. These thoughts flashed through his mind, and when he heard Uzumaki Mito's words, he quickly stood up. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, he said humbly, "Master Mito, what are you talking about? You supported me to become the Hokage. Without your support, how could I have secured the position of Hokage? There is no Hokage in front of you." It was a shame to say this, but he had to say it. Even, I didn't dare to feel dissatisfied about it. It's so uncomfortable. Hee. Uzumaki Mito just sneered when he heard this, and said slowly, "I know what you are thinking, I'm telling you straight. I'm really just bringing Tianyi and Kushina together, hoping that they can be together in the future and achieve mutual success. I just want Tianyi to be able to master Nine Tails in the future, because, through the Senju elite's development in the past few years, I have seen through your thoughts, let me be frank. I am very worried about you." Hearing this, the third generation shuddered. They thought, sure enough, the after effects of killing the Senju have come. Uzumaki Mito didn't care what he thought, and then said coldly, "I am very worried that after I die, Tsunade and even the Wake will probably follow the footsteps of those Senju who were killed by the trap. Not to mention Kushina, the future Jinchuriki. So, I need someone who can check and control you and restrict you after I die in the future. Like I'm doing now, to ensure that Tsunade and the Wake will be safe and sound in the future, to ensure that you will not let power devour your humanity and do more things that will harm Konoha in the future. I know very well that the ninja world is not peaceful. I can tolerate their deaths in battle due to accidents, but I cannot tolerate their deaths due to trickery. Tianyi and Kushina are the ones I plan to train. They will be used to check and balance you in the future, to ensure the safety of Tsunade and the Wake, and to ensure that the Senju clan is not wiped out by you, the last resort to ensure that you can become better in the future." At this point, Uzumaki Mito glanced at the third generation, and seeing his ugly face, he said with a slightly relieved expression, "Of course, I don't want Konoha to really have internal strife because of this, and finally be taken advantage of by foreign enemies and destroyed. I can't explain to Hashirama if that happens, so, I will train and teach Tianyi well, and guide him to become the true guardian of Konoha and the pillar of Konoha. I still have confidence in this. Through my interactions with him over this period of time, I know very well that this child is very smart and talented, not inferior to Hashirama. The vision and heart are far more than just one Uchiha or even Konoha. He is not narrow-minded. I believe that with my guidance, even if he is with Kushina and can control Nine Tails, he will not lead Uchiha to rebel in the future as long as you don't deliberately target him, suppress him, or be hostile to him. Instead, I will bring Uchiha with me and completely integrate into Konoha. This is actually what Tobirama has always wanted to see, instead of what you are doing now, constantly suppressing Uchiha, targeting Uchiha, and being hostile to Uchiha. Do you understand?" She didn't actually think so at first. I am not prepared to confront the third generation directly. But after comprehensive consideration, I feel that things have come to this point, so I might as well change my thinking and do what I am saying now. Rather than hoping that the third generation and Danzo, these unscrupulous guys, will not target Tsunade, Naoki, Kushina, and Tianyi in the future, it is better to leave enough backup to check the third generation. This is the most beneficial to Tsunade and others, to the third generation and others, and to Konoha. Otherwise, with Tianyi's talent, if he were to be suppressed and targeted by the third generation in the future, it would be impossible for him to swallow his anger and accept it like her. This child is stubborn. Once he is extremely disgusted, it is possible that the entire ninja world will be turned upside down by him. This child splits out several shadow clone every day to work hard, absorb various knowledge, and practice diligently to improve his own strength. It can even be seen from the fact that he forces himself to make friends and win over his classmates. Because he is so smart, this child has already understood the situation of Uchiha, Konoha, and even the ninja world clearly. That's why he has such a sense of crisis and is so aggressive. Otherwise, with his status and talent, he could have had an easy and happy childhood and become stronger step by step. But time waits for no one. The external environment made him feel insecure and he had no choice but to do so. When the third generation heard Uzumaki Mito's straightforward words, their hearts sank again, and they didn't know how to answer Uzumaki Mito for a moment. He somewhat regretted that he was too rough and hasty in killing the Senju, and Uzumaki Mito saw through it. Otherwise, why would Mito do such a thing today? He really wanted to dissuade Uzumaki Mito from doing this. But he also knew that he could not convince the current Uzumaki Mito. Ultimately, it was their actions that made Uzumaki Mito feel insecure. She was afraid that Senju would be completely wiped out by them after her death, and that they would kill Tsunade, Naoki and others in the future. The third generation really wanted to say that he wouldn't go so far as to kill Tsunade. After all, this person is his disciple. But when necessary, he will guide or condone Danzo to harm Tsunade and make her lose the idea and ability to compete for Hokage. Because, since third generation took this position, they have no intention of handing over this power. The more power he gained and the more he tasted the power, the more he couldn't stop. I am increasingly afraid of losing this power. He also hopes to train his sons and grandsons well in the future so that they can inherit the position of Hokage from generation to generation. At the same time, the Sarutobi clan will be developed and expanded step by step, so that Konoha will become the Sarutobi village in the future. To achieve this goal, both Tsunade and Naoki are huge threats. But does he dare to say this idea out loud? If they dared, they would probably slap his head off and play it like a ball in the whirlpool water. So, he was in a dilemma at this time. Should he really agree to Uzumaki Mito's request to train Uchiha Tenuki and bring Uchiha Tenuki and Uzumaki Kushina together so that they can become his rivals in the future? Uzumaki Mito said it lightly. You are confident in Uchiha Tianyi's character and you think he can suppress Uchiha from rebellion in the future, but I am not confident. He is now extremely worried about Uchiha Tianyi. He felt that Uchiha Tianyi was too much of a threat. Why? You don't agree? Uzumaki Mito saw his conflicted and hesitant look, and immediately narrowed his eyes again, and the restrained aura began to slowly emanate from him. The threat couldn't be more obvious. If the third generation doesn't agree to this, then she doesn't mind suppressing the third generation directly and replacing the cage for Konoha. Feeling the threat from Uzumaki Mito, the third generation broke out in sweat and felt bitter in their hearts. He knew that if he couldn't give Uzumaki Mito a satisfactory answer today, he might not be able to leave the yard. So, after a long silence and a lot of hesitation, the third generation gritted his teeth and nodded with a frustrated look on his face. Okay. I can promise you, Master Mito, to bring Uchiha Tenuki and Uzumaki Kushina together, but I must also take part in guiding and educating Uchiha Tenuki and Uzumaki Kushina, to ensure that he will not deliberately be hostile and target me in the future, to ensure his loyalty and protection of Konoha. Okay. This was his final effort after weighing the pros and cons. How can he feel at ease just letting Uzumaki Mito train and guide Uchiha Tenuki and Uzumaki Kushina? I can only strive for a training qualification, and then try to brainwash Uchiha Tianyi and Uzumaki Kushina. Although he already regarded Uchiha Tianyi as a huge threat at this time. But he still told himself in his heart that Uchiha Tianyi was just a kid in his early 5 years old and did not pose a real threat. It was not too late to educate him now. As long as he can use this education to brainwash Uchiha Tianyi and Uzumaki Kushina, control them in his hands and make them his own people, then Uzumaki Mito's so-called balance method will be self-defeating. This is not a solution. As for the previous plan to suppress Tianyi and make him and his classmates fall apart, third generation has temporarily shelved this plan. Because if he really wanted to die and did this, it would definitely cause Tianyi to feel disgusted, which would affect his ability to brainwash and control Tianyi. Oh. Uzumaki Mito raised his eyebrows slightly after hearing this, and immediately understood the third generation's plan. But she did not veto it, because she knew that this was the last stand of the third generation. If you don't agree, this matter will probably be deadlocked here. This is not a good thing. If things go wrong, it may lead to civil strife in Konoha. She had no objection and lived on. The most important thing was to arrange her affairs after her death and ensure that Tsunade and others could protect themselves in the future. She is very confident in her own education, Tianyi's character and mind, and does not think that the third generation can really brainwash and control Tianyi. As for Kushina, this girl doesn't have the brains or ability. But it doesn't matter, as long as she likes Tianyi, following Tianyi will not be a problem. During this period, I will tell her more about the bad things that Sarutobi Hiruzen and others did in the past, so as to influence Kushina's perception of the third generation. Given this girl's explosive temper, it would be impossible for the third generation to brainwash her and lead her astray. She knew too well the hot-tempered personality of a pure Uzumaki girl. Okay. I agree to this. But it can't be too frequent, and it can't affect their normal practice time, just 1 hour a week. What do you think? Uzumaki Mito restrained his momentum and spoke to the third generation carefully. Okay. That's it. The third generation knew that there was little room for negotiation and could only nod in agreement. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Having said that, third generation stood up. He couldn't stay here for a moment. He felt that he should not have come today. That way, there won't be a falling out with Uzumaki Mito, and everything will be exposed. That way, he would have more room to maneuver. Now, I can't do many of my little movements. Because he knew clearly that from now on, Uzumaki Mito would definitely keep an eye on his every move towards Tianyi and the others. Don't doubt Uzumaki Mito's range of perception and his hidden hands. The afterglow of Senju is still there, and Uzumaki Mito still has some useful hidden pieces in his hand. Well. Go ahead. I hope you can abide by our agreement and keep an eye on that beast Danzo, otherwise, hehe. Uzumaki Mito did not stop the third generation, but just warned them one last time. At the same time, he nodded at Danzo and let the third generation leave. As for the third generation, after leaving the Senju territory, they just had gloomy faces and didn't dare to say or do anything more. Because he didn't know whether Uzumaki Mito was staring at him at this moment. He quickly returned to his office with a gloomy face. After sensing it and confirming that the barrier here had been open normally, he breathed a sigh of relief. But he was still worried, and under Danzo's puzzled and speechless gaze, he first drove away the Anbyo guards around him, then, he leaned over, formed a seal and pressed it on the ground, setting up a new high-level isolation barrier in the office. Call. After doing all this, third generation breathed a sigh of relief and sat down in his office chair amid Danzo's puzzled look. He picked up the pipe, skillfully stuffed a handful of tobacco into it, lit it, took a few puffs, and exhaled a mouthful of thick white smoke, then he glanced at Danzo who looked puzzled and said, "If you have any questions, just ask. You really screwed me today. I almost couldn't come back." The third generation began to pass the buck very skillfully. Well. It's all Danzo's fault. If he hadn't urged me to find Uzumaki Mito, how could I have gone through all this and ended up like this? If Danzo had not been too crude and hasty in killing the Senju elite, and Uzumaki Mito had not seen through the clues, how could this happen? What happened to you when you went to Master Mito's place? What made you so cautious and look so bad? Didn't he promise to stop bringing Uchiha Tenika together and preparing Jinchuriki? Danzo couldn't help it any longer, and when he heard third generation say that, he asked directly. Of course I didn't agree. Not only did I not agree. Instead, I just tore my face off with you and laid everything out in the open. Then, the third generation told Danzo everything that had happened in detail with a silent look on his face. Even Uzumaki Mito's repeated bursts of energy and his threats to put him under extreme pressure were described in detail. Finally, third generation looked at Danzo angrily and said, "Do you know that I almost couldn't come back today?" The sound, Mali Zhao, became louder and louder, and finally it was a roar. "So you agree to this?" Danzo looked at third generation with a fierce expression and said, how could you agree to something like this? Will you just sit there and watch her train a rival for our future? She said she believed in that evil kid Uchiha Tenkei, and you really believed it. The teacher has long warned us that Uchiha is evil and cannot be trusted. Don't you know that? Danzo was furious at this point. He didn't expect that this would be the result of the third generation's trip. It's better not to go. After hearing this, the third generation became even more angry and pointed at Danzo's nose and yelled, "Who do you think this is because of? Do you think I want this? Don't I understand the dangers of this?" But Master Mito even revealed his nine tails chakra, pressing directly on me. Do you know how helpless and desperate I felt at that moment? When he said this, third generation's eyes started to turn red and his voice started to tremble. Hearing this, Danzo was also touched by the third generation's words and the despair in their tone. But before he could speak, the third generation roared, "You don't know. How could you possibly know that? Over the years, I thought I was invincible in konoha, and even the strongest in the ninja world. And Master Mito is already 61 years old, and because he has been suppressing the nine tails in his body, he has lost a lot of vitality. He must be like a candle in the wind, and his strength is not much left. What's the result?" At that moment, I felt like she could easily crush me to death. Can you understand this kind of despair? Danzo saw that the third generation was venting their anger and fear, and for a moment he felt the same way, so he didn't rush to celebrate. After a while, when the third generation's emotions had gradually calmed down, he spoke in a calm tone, "Hiruzen. Are you sure that Master Mito is not bluffing or pretending? Could it be a trick? P.S. New book is on the shelves. Please place your first order or custom order." Chapter 49. The third generation may have just vented their frustration and fear, and their mood has calmed down. After hearing Danzo's words, he stopped getting hysterical and rolled his eyes at Danzo and shook his head, saying, "Haha. Impossible. Even if it's possible, do you dare to try it? If you try, you'll probably die. Anyway, he doesn't dare. You can try it yourself if you dare. You know what? What I regret most now is that I believed your lies and went to question Master Mito in person. I should have let you go, at the very least I should take you with me." The third generation stared at Danzo with a gloomy look. Danzo felt a little nervous and relieved when he heard this. He looked at third generation with a vague look in his eyes. "That's not necessary. It seems there is no need to test it. Just do as you agreed with her. However, regarding the opportunity to brainwash Uchiha Tenkei and Uzumaki Kushina every week, I hope it will allow me to." At this point, Danzo suddenly realized that the third generation was looking at him expectantly, waiting for him to say these words. He suddenly paused. He frowned and looked at the third generation and asked, "Hiruzen, what's with that expression? Are you counting on me to take over the task of brainwashing these two Zhu kids? You want to trick me again and make me take the blame?" He was too familiar with that look. Every time the third generation wanted him to take the blame or trick him, he had this expression. He suddenly realized that educating Uchiha Tenkei and Uzumaki Kushina was definitely not an easy job. It was a huge pit, because, whether it is done well or not, there are huge hidden dangers. The point is, even if it is done well, the one who gets the biggest benefit is not him, but the Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. He can just sit back and enjoy the fruits of his labor. Danzo has to take the blame for this matter, and if Uzumaki Mito finds out, he will have to face her wrath. If he fails to do well, at best the third generation will hold him accountable. Once Uzumaki Mito finds out, he will still have to face Uzumaki Mito's wrath. The only benefit he gained was that if things were successful, he would have one less enemy who could compete with him, and he wouldn't have to worry about Uchiha becoming an unbeatable enemy. As for wanting to completely control Nine Tails Jinchuriki in his own hands, Danzo doesn't believe that third generation will give him this opportunity. This dog is always shady. No way. That's not true. Danzo, you're overthinking it. When the third generation saw that Danzo had actually reacted, they quickly waved their hands and shook their heads to deny it. How could I be such a person? But, didn't you always tell me that your brainwashing method is very effective? Didn't you keep asking me for Uchiha Tianyi before? Now that I'm willing to give you this opportunity, why are you doubting it? That's your fault. He thought Danzo had become smarter, which was not good. He had thought about this matter on his way back, and it was indeed not easy to deal with. There are huge disadvantages whether you succeed or fail. The best option is to let Danzo complete the task. Because Danzo is really good at brainwashing. Get lost. When Danzo heard what the third generation said, he angrily said, I won't do this, you can do it yourself. Your ability to deceive and brainwash others is better than mine. I won't argue with you. Anyway, you are the Hokage, and this matter affects you the most. I'm just a Hokage assistant, there's no need to be so anxious, let's go. After saying that, Danzo ran away in a hurry. No matter how loudly the third generation shouted at him from behind, he did not stop, but ran even faster. That BD. I wanted to ask him how he was doing with stealing the recipes and seasoning formulas. Really? You really think I have to force this on him? I'm worried that he will use it to control Tianyi and Jinkraki. Haha. The third generation walked to the windowsill and saw Danzo's hurriedly leaving on the avenue outside the Hokage building, muttering silently. The next morning, Tianyi split several shadow clones to learn medical skills, sealing techniques, and go to the secret training base to inform Minato and the others. He finished his breakfast and walked towards the school. When he arrived at the school, he did not tell Minato and the others shadow clone that he came here in person today, but took out a sealed book and quietly flipped through it. I don't know how long it was before the class bell rang. The head teacher came in with Kushina. The next step is the self-introduction process of counting breaths. After Kushina said that her dream was to become the first female Hokage, she was unsurprisingly ridiculed by many people. Ha ha ha. You're the only one who can become the Hokage? That's ridiculous. That's right. Look at her weird red hair. It's so ugly. Haha, look at her red face and red hair. Doesn't she look like a tomato? Haha. What you said is really vivid, really. Really? Keep talking. Why don't you continue? You guys too. At this time, Tianyi had stood up and walked in front of these boys without knowing when. He had a gloomy face and exuded a captivating aura. He stared at these boys coldly. When Shadow Clone of Shikaku and the others saw it, they were a little surprised. I didn't expect Tianyi to stand up for Kushina. It seems they know each other. Shikaku guessed, rubbing his chin. It should be. Minato also nodded. Didn't Tianyi say that he was learning sealing techniques recently? This girl should be from the Uzumaki clan, this clan is most famous for its sealing technique. Maybe it has something to do with this. Minato has read a lot of books from the school library in the past few months. I understand nature more and more. I heard that the first Hokage's wife, Mito-sama, is from the Uzumaki clan, and Tsunade-sama is her granddaughter. I guess Tianyi is learning the sealing technique from Master Mito. This girl must be Mito-sama's junior. Yi also guessed. Several people easily analyzed the inside story. The scene returns to Tianyi. Tianyi? You know her? The boys looked at Tianyi tremblingly and asked. How could they not be afraid of Tianyi? He is an invincible existence among the students in the school, and he is also the young master of the Uchiha family. A while ago, some seniors heard about Tianyi's title of being the best in their age group and wanted to cause trouble for him. As a result, several of them were beaten by Tianyi. In normal outdoor combat courses, Tianyi kills his opponent instantly every time he strikes. Who wouldn't be afraid? What else? Tianyi looked at them indifferently, then looked around, scanned the other students in the class, and warned, Kushina is my teacher's sister, which means she is my sister. From now on, I will protect her. If I find out who dares to bully her or laugh at her, don't blame me for teaching you a lesson. Do you hear me? Yes. Yes. The boys and some of the classmates nodded in agreement, and their eyes towards Kushina changed. There is awe and curiosity. Instead, the girls looked at Kushina with some hostility and distance. Because Tianyi is so handsome and outstanding, they all like Tianyi. Tianyi said that this was his sister, but she was not his biological sister, and they were not related at all. Who knew if she was his lover's sister? This kind of person is the most powerful enemy competing with them for Tianyi-jun, okay? Tianyi naturally noticed this as well. But he didn't say anything further. Because he knew he couldn't change that. Anyway, just make sure no one bullies Kushina. As for Kushina being isolated by the girls in the class, there is no other way. Tianyi, please go back to your seat. At this time, the head teacher on the podium pretended to be angry and scolded. But everyone could hear that he had no real intention of scolding Tianyi. Absolute partiality. The head teacher can't do anything about it. Not to mention Tianyi's identity and grades. The young lady next to her was sent by Lord Tsunade herself, and she was personally told that this was her sister and she must take good care of her. Kushina was ridiculed just now. If Tianyi didn't stand up, he would have spoken out to stop it. Now that Tianyi has stood up to defend Kushina, the effect is even better than that of him as the class teacher. After all, he couldn't stay in the class all the time to protect Kushina, and it was even more impossible for him to attack students just because their classmates mocked Kushina. But Tianyi can. After hearing this, Tianyi naturally returned to her seat and winked at Kushina, who was looking at her with admiration on the podium. Kushina's pretty face suddenly turned red for me. This made the female classmates who saw their interaction look at Kushina with even more envy and jealousy. Damn, a judge, current charge. Okay, classmate XI, please find a seat and sit down. Class is about to start. At this time, the head teacher said to Kushina. Good. Kushina nodded quickly, then walked straight towards Tianyi. Finally, he sat directly on the empty seat to the right of Tianyi, smiled happily at Tianyi, and whispered, "Thank you, brother Tianyi." Haha. You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Tianyi smiled and nodded, pointing at Minato and the others and introducing them to her. Let me introduce you, this is Namikaze Minato, this is Nara Shikaku, Yamanaka Hai, Akamichi Choza, they are all my good friends, you can get to know each other. Hello. Kushina smiled and waved slightly to greet them. Hello. Minato and the others responded with a smile. Among them, Minato looked at Kushina twice. But when he saw Kushina approaching Tianyi intimately and whispering something to him, he was slightly startled, understood something, and immediately withdrew his gaze, suppressing the strange thought that had just arisen in his mind. He did like Kushina's red hair a little, but since the girl liked Tianyi and there seemed to be something wrong between them, he couldn't have such thoughts. Tianyi is his best friend and benefactor of his preaching. He cannot let Tianyi down because of a woman. This is betrayal. Why should a man worry about not having a wife? He believes that he will be able to find other girls he likes in the future. Tianyi sensed Minato's change in expression at that moment and smiled knowingly. I thought, Minato is still a good brother. He knows that you can't steal your brother's woman. In this case, he will definitely arrange a good marriage for Minato in the future. The next day, Tianyi used his original form to accompany Kushina to attend classes at school. Of course, even if this so his original body was not idle either, secretly practicing the Chakrajotyan moving method or the Sharingan eye-opening method, or reading the sealed book. Let's go. I'll take you to the secret base where we practice every day. After school in the afternoon, Tianyi smiled and extended his hand to Kushina to invite her. Kushina happily reached out and held Tianyi's hand and walked out of the school. It took the two of them less than 10 minutes to reach the secret training base on the side of the Minami Kaga River, where they met Shikaku and others. At this time, Shikaku and the others had already removed their shadow clone at school, and naturally received the memories of today's school and knew of Kushina's existence. They all stopped and raised their hands to greet Tianyi and Kushina. After that, I continued to practice. Everyone is working so hard. Kushina saw it and couldn't help but speak. Yes. Tianyi nodded affirmatively, because everyone hopes to become stronger, so that when they need strength in the future, they will not be unable to protect themselves due to lack of strength. Friends and companions. Kushina was slightly stunned and a little touched, but not much. After all, nothing had happened in the Whirlpool country at that time, and she had been living a carefree life. She was still too young, so it was normal that she couldn't resonate with others. Tianyi didn't care too much. He immediately began to practice with Kushina's company. Because of Kushina, I have lost a lot of progress in my practice today, and I need to make up for it. Until the sky gradually darkened. Tianyi greeted and said, "All right. Let's stop here for today. Let's go to Sahai restaurant for a dinner to celebrate Kushina's enrollment." Good. Agree. Minato, Shikaku and the others naturally had no objections, and Dingzo couldn't help but raise his hand and cheer. He wished he could go to Sahai restaurant for dinner every day. Where is the most delicious food? But this is not realistic. It's okay to have a meal together occasionally, but on weekdays they still have to go home and have dinner with their families. Soon, several people arrived at the Sahai restaurant. Wow! So many people! Business is booming. Kushina looked at the Sahai restaurant filled with people and couldn't help but exclaim. Hey, not bad. This is a restaurant that Tianyi-jun opened with us. The recipes and ingredients were all provided by Tianyi-jun. However, the food here is still not as delicious as the one Tianyi made himself. After hearing this, Danzo couldn't help but show off and praise Kushina. Is that so? Kushina looked at Tianyi in surprise after hearing this. Brother Tianyi, are you so amazing? You can even cook so well. However, when she thought of Tianyi's horrible performance when studying, she suddenly felt that it was very reasonable. Indeed, with Tianyi's comprehension, what would he not be able to learn? Haha. Not bad. Not bad. Let's go to our exclusive box. Tianyi smiled slightly and immediately took Kushina and the others to their exclusive box. The order was taken quickly and we started waiting. After a while, the restaurant manager, Nara Anzi, came in with the chef, nodded to Shikaku and the others, then came to Tianyi and said, Tanaka-kun. Chef Tanaka has been feeling a little unwell lately, and is easily distracted. Didn't you learn medicine from Tsunade Wooden Golem for 10 periods of time? Won't you show me? Business has been so good recently that he has no time to go to the Konoha hospital. After hearing this, Tianyi frowned slightly, looked at Chef Tanaka, waved at him, and motioned him to stretch out his hand. Then, while pinching the pulse of one of his hands to check, he asked, when did it start? What are the symptoms? It started yesterday. I was fine when I got home from get off work the night before yesterday, but it was like this when I woke up the next day. Except for feeling listless, easily distracted, and easily tired, there are no other problems. Tianyi nodded slightly after hearing this. He had found out something through the pulse. Then, he used chakra and mental power to check Chef Tanaka's body and head. It was eventually determined that Chef Tanaka was fine physically, but the problem was with his brain. His brain had been tampered with and his memory had been forcibly read. Fortunately, the person who did it seemed to have some reservations and tried to hide it, so he was not too violent. It just caused some damage to Chef Tanaka's mental strength. This is also the fundamental reason why Tanaka feels listless, easily distracted, and easily tired. P.S. New book is on the shelves. Please place your first order or custom order. Chapter 50. It seems that someone has set his sights on my recipe. This kind of means is not available to ordinary people, so professional. Danzo? Or the third generation? Or a conspiracy between the two? Or someone from another ninja clan? Tianyi couldn't be sure for a moment. But Danzo and third generation are the most likely suspects. To determine who it is, we need to see who will open a restaurant using the stolen recipes later. Tianyi thought to himself. Fortunately, no one else knew the recipe except him. Therefore, it is a blessing in disguise that most of the signature dishes will not be completely copied. Unfortunately, the sealing technique I learned from Grandma Mito is too yin. If we had set a corresponding security seal in Chef Tanaka's mind a month earlier, this problem wouldn't have occurred. Tianyi thought with some annoyance. How about it? Chef Tanaka, Shikaku, and others saw that Tianyi frowned and didn't speak for a long time. Shikaku realized something was wrong and couldn't help asking. Nothing. Tianyi shook his head and said to Chef Tanaka, it's just that he's overworked and his spirit has been damaged. I'll treat you. You can go home and have a good night's rest and you'll be fine. As he said that, Tianyi stood up and asked Chef Tanaka to sit down. He put his hand on his head, and a light green healing light emanated from his hand. After stimulating his brain and healing the mental damage, he withdrew his hand. In other words, the loss is very small, otherwise it would not be that simple. In fact, for a ninja, this amount of damage can almost be healed by itself. But Chef Tanaka is just an ordinary man, almost 40 years old, and his mental recovery ability is far inferior to that of a ninja, so this is the case. Okay. It's okay. Go and do your own thing. Try to assign things to other people today. Tianyi waved his hand and warned. Yes. Thank you, Master Tianyi. Chef Tanaka immediately stood up and bowed to the sky in gratitude, then left. After he left the room, Nara walked over and closed the door, then looked at Tian and said, Tian-sensei. Things shouldn't be as simple as you said just now, right? What's going on? After all, she was from the Nara family. How could she not notice the problem that a 5-year-old kid like Shikaku could notice? Yet, there was definitely something wrong with me just now. Shikaku asked, nodding his head. It's nothing, actually. Tianyi listened and narrowed his eyes and said, "It's just that someone used mental probing methods to forcibly search his memory. The method is very professional. I think they are jealous of our business and want to steal the recipes and seasoning formulas." "What?" Liu Ju and the others were all shocked when they heard this, so he succeeded by being surprised? "Then what should we do?" "Don't worry." Tianyi saw everyone's nervousness and resentment, smiled and waved his hand, saying, "You all know that the recipe is not the key, the ingredients are the most important. For some common dishes that don't require special ingredients, an experienced cook can actually figure out the recipe after eating it twice. So, we have an impact on this matter, but not as big as you think. In the future, the supply method and daily quantity of ingredients will need to be changed. This is to prevent the other party from being unable to steal the ingredient formula and instead stealing a large amount of ingredients. Now, we just have to wait for them to open a store using our recipes. Then we'll know who is behind this." Therefore, at this point, he looked at Nara Anzi and said, "In the next period of time, I'll have to trouble Sister Enza to allocate some of your experience and have people pay attention to the situation of restaurants on several commercial streets in Konoha. Report to me any news in time, but once you've confirmed the store, don't investigate further. Leave the rest to me." At present, his spiritual perception range has been increased to 600 meters. As long as he had the corresponding address, it would be much easier for him to figure out the person behind it. If it is really Danzo or third generation, then if Nara investigates further, she may be in danger. Tianyi still thinks Danzo is the most likely candidate. Even if the third generation is involved behind the scenes, given the third generation style of doing things, they will definitely hide behind the scenes and not get involved, leaving it to Danzo to handle. Otherwise, how can we say that Danzo is his official idol? He is a professional at passing the buck. Okay. Leave it to me. I'll send someone to keep an eye on it. Don't let me know who it is, otherwise, I will make him pay, hehe. Nara Kyoko nodded, then clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. You know, she also has the right to share in the dividends of this restaurant. Isn't stealing recipes and ingredients and opening a shop just stealing her money? She finally found a job that was safe, easy, and profitable. Was it easy for her? The person behind this will not have a good death. Well, that's it. Tianyi nodded with satisfaction. In fact, he can also use his wishes to lock on to the target. But Tianyi was reluctant to waste his wishes on such things. However, once he identified the person behind the incident, he wouldn't mind using a wish or two to take revenge on the other party. If I can't kill him, I'll make him sick to death, humph. The next morning, as usual, Tianyi separated several shadow clones and sent them to various destinations. However, today he temporarily sent a shadow clone to the secret training base. The original body walked towards the Senju tribe. Because, the shadow clone who went there yesterday passed back Uzumaki Mito's words, asking him to go there in person today, as Uzumaki Mito had something important to discuss with him. Naturally, nature will not refuse. Soon, he arrived at the yard of Uzumaki Mito's house, knocked on the door, and after receiving a response, he pushed the door open and walked in. Seeing Uzumaki Mito in the pavilion in the front yard, but not Kushina's shadow clone, he quickly walked over to greet her, Grandma Mito. Good morning. It's early in the morning. Come and sit down. Uzumaki Mito also smiled kindly and nodded. Good. Tianyi walked forward naturally, sat down in the empty seat opposite Uzumaki Mito, looked at Uzumaki Mito and asked doubtfully, Grandma Mito, what is the matter that you asked me to come here today? This is what happened. Uzumaki Mito did not ramble on and immediately recounted to Tien the general process of his conversation and confrontation with the third generation the day before yesterday. Hearing this, Tianyi frowned. He didn't expect that something like this would happen the day before yesterday. The third generation and Uzumaki Mito actually had such a fierce confrontation. This can be considered a falling out. However, he could understand why the third generation reacted so strongly. These two bastards have always hoped to take the next generation of Nine Tails Jinchuriki into their own hands. Now, Uzumaki Mito seems to want to treat Kushina as his future daughter-in-law, and he himself is an Uchiha. It would be strange if they could sit still. Now, the third generation is probably on high alert and on guard against me. The good impression I had from before is probably useless now. Tianyi thought to himself. Of course, he didn't particularly care. Anyway, it's better to have Uzumaki Mito as a backer, right? In this case, we must develop a life potion as soon as possible to extend Grandma Mito's life. Or, create a confidential spiritual seal as soon as possible, and then teach her some traditional Chinese martial arts or chakra movement techniques to extend her life. Tianyi thought again. After all, Uzumaki Mito had confronted the third generation directly in order to bring him and Kushina together. Even though she did this out of consideration for Tsunade, Noeki, Kushina, and the Senju clan, it could not conceal her recognition and help for Tianyi. With Uzumaki Mito's support, his subsequent Uchiha interest alliance plan and even future Hokage plan will be much simpler. This is a favor. In addition, she had taught him the sealing technique without hesitation or reservation. It is also a great favor. Tianyi is not an ungrateful person. Naturally, I want to give something back. Besides, this will also be beneficial to your future. Then it's decided. Learn some spiritual confidentiality contract seals from Grandma Mito as soon as possible, then make a wish for enlightenment and create a strong enough spiritual confidentiality contract seal. Tianyi made up his mind. In this way, there is no need to worry about these skills of yours being leaked out. Of course, all aspects of Chinese martial arts will not be taught all at once. The chakra moving method will not teach the version of their own practice, but the secondary version created at that time. To be honest, apart from him, there are probably few people who can learn the perfect version of chakra movement method. Too complicated and too difficult. What do you think after listening to this? Uzumaki Mito finished speaking, looked at Tianyi and asked seriously. Tianyi listened and said to Kide, I am honored to be recognized by you, Grandma Mito. This is a win-win situation. I have no objection. You have handled it very well. Just do as you say. Thank you for your maintenance. With you as my big supporter, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Also, I will take good care of Kushina, Tsunade-sensei, and Noeki Nii. Since Uzumaki Mito could do this for him, he naturally could not be ungrateful. Very good. You are indeed a good boy. Uzumaki Mito saw Tianyi's serious expression and sensed his sincerity. The kind smile on his face became even more intense. He reached out and touched Tianyi's little head and said, I will rely on you a lot in the future. Tsunade, Kushina, and Noeki are far inferior to you in every aspect. I cannot trust them. I will try to hold on for a few more years, train you as much as possible, and protect you. I hope you can grow up quickly. Of course, don't push yourself too hard. Your talent far exceeds my expectations. There is definitely enough time. Tianyi was also somewhat moved when he saw Uzumaki Mito's cautious look, who wanted to grow up as quickly as possible, stand on his own, and be able to protect Tsunade and the others from wind and rain, but was also worried about pushing him too much. Immediately, he nodded and said, I will. Besides, I actually know a little about your physical condition. Tsunade-sensei also discussed with me a few days ago how to make up for your lost vitality and extend your lifespan. 0. Please give me flowers. I have already made some progress in this regard. Give us a year or so, and we should be able to develop a life potion that can replenish your vitality. At this point, Tianyi paused, temporarily ignoring Uzumaki Mito's surprised look, and continued, in addition, I have some other methods that may also extend your life. But it's almost I need you to teach me some spiritual and confidentiality sealing techniques as soon as possible. I'll give you a surprise then, okay? Oh. Uzumaki Mito was even more surprised and curious. She could tell that Tianyi had a secret, but she didn't ask any more questions. Immediately, he smiled softly and nodded, of course it's not a problem. I didn't expect you to notice my health problems and consider prolonging my life for me. It's hard for you. In fact, it's enough to not extend my life. I've lived long enough. I don't have a big obsession with this, but I just can't let go of you good kids. I just can't let go of Senju and Konoha. Tianyi heard this and shook his head, saying, it is very important for us that you can live longer. In the future, we will have many things that require your support. So please don't refuse. This is also a token of my and teacher Tsunade's love. Just kidding, if I can always have Uzumaki Mito as my backer, why would I choose to be a temporary backer experience card for Baba for a few years? Isn't this just pure sickness? 0 Anyway, whether it is the life potion or the chakra circulation method, it will be studied and taught to her sooner or later. Since you've said that, I won't say anything more, Grandma. Just remember not to push yourself too hard. Remember, you are only a 5-year-old child, Don't take on too much, now you still have grandma to support you. Also, you have to be careful in the so-called education classes of third generation every week. At the same time, help Kushina and don't let him brainwash you. Do you understand? Uzumaki Mito expressed his concern and admonition earnestly. Yes. I will. Tianyi smiled and nodded. Okay. I won't say any more words to you, old lady. You are a smart child. Since you need the sealing technique for the spirit and confidentiality contract, I will teach you now. Having said that, Uzumaki Mito immediately began to teach Tianyi the advanced sealing technique he needed. Tianyi also began to study seriously and eagerly. In a flash, another 3 days passed. That day, after school, Kushina asked Tianyi's shadow clone at school to take him to the place where Tianyi and his friends were training. He complained to Tianyi, "Brother Tianyi, I don't want to go there anymore. I have finished my study and classes, can I also come over to practice with you guys?" Hey? Why? Did someone bully you? Tianyi frowned when he heard it, then looked at Shadow Clone who was going to school. The Shadow Clone spread his hands and released himself. Then, Tianyi quickly found out what was going on. Somewhat helplessly, he reached out and touched Kushina's little head and said, "So you're isolated. This is really not easy to solve. How about I ask Sister Mikoto to take good care of you at school? What can he do about isolation? You can't just beat up those goddesses and force them to accept Kushina, right? How outrageous must he be to do such a thing? Mikoto-san? Who is that?" Kushina's eyes lit up when he heard this, then he suddenly felt alert and asked. Then, she was also slightly stunned, thinking, "What's wrong with me? Am I in love with brother Shangtian?" Thinking of this, her cheeks turned slightly red and she stole a glance at the sky. Just as she met Tianyi's gaze, she quickly lowered her head and her cheeks became even redder. Tianyi vaguely guessed something and felt a little funny. He is so young and already knows all this, and he is even jealous. I really don't know what to say. But children in the ninja world are generally precocious. Tianyi immediately said, "Mikoto is my sister, we have had a very good relationship since we were young, she is also currently attending school, but she is 3 years older than us, and she also uses Shadow Clone. Of course, if you plan to go to school as Shadow Clone, you don't have to bother her. But our training is very hard. Are you sure you can stick with it? If Kushina comes, Yin won't let her play here. He would definitely urge her to practice well. I guess by then she will see that everyone is practicing seriously and she will feel embarrassed to play around. I'm not afraid of hardship. That's it." Kushina decided directly with gritted teeth. Then, he added, "Also, I don't need you to introduce your sister to me." Tianyi asked doubtfully, "Is it still necessary? P.S. New book is on the shelves. Please be the first to pre-order, and please pre-order yourself." If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.